Everybody, welcome to the July 12th regular City Council meeting. Let's please stand for the pledge. Thank you all for coming. We got a full house. I don't think there's been this many people accumulated here in the last year. Okay, first on the agenda is the approval of the additions. I suppose I got to list them, don't I? A3 is Stephanie Newman is going to make a presentation of AEDs to the police department. We've got some additional bills for approval. We've got to discuss the continued use of Zoom at meetings. A memo from Chief Lee in regards to hiring a part-time officer. Discuss status of the City Hall sign and discuss use of a secured box for attorney invoices. So with that, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Stephanie Newman.
Am I starting? Yep. Oh.
Right out of the gate.
Yeah, I don't know that I prepared for this, but Eric asked me to come here today. I am donating 4 new AEDs to replace the 10-year-old ones to the police department. You guys approved a couple of weeks ago for us to have parking here. You may have known we had a fundraiser / housewarming party across the street where we raised money to purchase these and place them throughout the community. And in talking with Eric, he expressed the need for the police department to have new ones. I think we'll also be looking at making sure theirs are in good working order and passing those possibly along to the fire department if they have a use for them or another business, but we'll also be keeping those in working order. So today I have 4 brand new ones for Eric's department.
Fantastic.
Stephanie, I thank you very much. Thank you for that generous donation.
Yeah, very generous.
Okay, next we have public forum. Action may or may not be taken on any issues raised if council. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Do we have a motion to accept it?
I move to accept the donation of the 4 AEDs.
I'll
second it.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion. Thank you again. Okay, now, public forum. Action may or may not be taken on any issue raised. If council requires more information or time for consideration, the issue will be placed on the agenda of the next regular council meeting. Speaker must state their name and address at the discretion of the mayor. Each speaker is given 3 minutes. Does anybody have anything?
Jerome Volts, 37668 Moan Beach Trail. On the 28th of June, I went through the bridge by C&C there. Someone put some graffiti on there that should have been erased as soon as they found out about it. It's that bad. I called and left a message with one of the city employees about it. Next day I called and talked to another one, and they said it was referred to the county. Well, I went through with the boat yesterday. It's still on there. How many kids do you think went through there last weekend and saw that? It's not very appropriate. And I don't care if it's county road. The county doesn't really care about that bridge as much as the citizens of Cross Lake should. This is a tourist town, and it should have been taken care of right away when they found out about it.
And it still is there?
It's still there. And if they can't afford to do it, I'll go buy the can of paint and paint it if they give me permission. It's not that tough a deal, but it is tough looking for the citizens.
It is, absolutely. Totally agree. What happened with that?
I received a phone call last week, the first time I heard of it, I think on Tuesday or Wednesday, from one of the county supervisors saying that they were going to take care of it. Up until that point in time, I had done an ICR on it and sent it off to them. I was under the assumption that they had taken care of it.
What do you know about it, Ted?
I've taken 3 calls on it, one from City Hall here with their complaint, and 2 other complaints from citizens. I've passed them on to the county supervisors, and I thought they had taken care of it. I will follow through with it tomorrow morning.
Thank you. Oh, thank you, Ted.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Ted. Okay, does anybody else?
Yeah, my name is Jeff Paff, 13721 Sandy Shores Lane, Cross Lake. I would like to see if you guys would put on the agenda licensing for these short-term rentals, the VRBO. I understand the city council doesn't want to, they wanted to sit a year and wait on it, and the county's, it's their item, I guess, but I'd like the city to think about putting on an agenda item, so, because I know I can fill this room with my neighbors that want to come in here and talk about some of the issues that are occurring with these things.
So Jeff, obviously you've had some complaints.
Yes,
You call the county?
yes, call the owner.
Okay, and nothing happens?
The only issue is you call the owner, they just say, thank you, now we can charge the residents more money. And I don't want to be that guy that calls the police department every time there's an issue, but it's going to get down to where I have to document those issues. And I don't want to be that person, but we're going to have to document these issues. So we've
Okay.
already got a couple complaints with the county, but I think the city needs to step up and also do something.
Last year, we formed a committee to look at VRBOs in town, and at the same time, the county was looking at it. So we yielded to the county. They were gonna do it for 1 year, and we were gonna see how it does. John, can I ask you, do you have anything to say on that, or?
No, that's exactly true. We had talked about it. We had said let the county do it for a year or so, let them work out all the bugs and do the hard work, and then we could come in later if you want to do it. I do know that there is a provision in their ordinance that if there are a number of complaints, I don't know if it's 3 or 5 that are validated, they can lose their license for renting. So I know people don't want to be that neighbor, but if it's a problem, you need to let the police know, because that's the only way to solve the issue, is to get the sheriff involved or the police department, that they're coming out there, and then the people can be stopped and it won't occur anymore.
So the city's policy is that the city can be more strict, but not less strict. So what we're doing is we're trying to take a year to see how it goes. But if we don't hear from you, it's going great.
Well, that's again why I wanted to see if you could put on an agenda item, because I know from my neighborhood, we can pack this place with the issues that we have, and it's every week. And it, you know, and again, yes, we should have been all over it and calling the police department. I was in public service for 30 years. I didn't want to be that guy that bothers them, but I do realize now that I'm going to have to be that person that
Yeah,
bothers
you
them.
have to be.
But I'd like the city to think about doing something about this also, because I just think that the city could have a little more teeth in this than the county has, and we can stop some of this. Because we have neighbors that are ready to leave Cross Lake because of the issues that are occurring. Now we got people that have been here for 20, 30 years want to leave because you have weekend people or weak people partying hard and breaking the law every weekend. You know, you got, my neighbor looks out the window and watching people pee on his garage or his house, throwing up in his yard, dogs running wild, people out on jet skis till 10:30 at night dragging kids behind, which is all in violation of the law.
So Jeff, we need to hear about that. Chief Lee, what do you do? Have you had many complaints?
We've had a few, and I know your neighbors called last week, and it was after the fact and everyone was gone. Apparently they had 11 cars parked out there and a lot of
13
lewd-
cars, they're
Okay.
parking, they're parking on the street. There's so many, they're parking on County Road 3. You got the garbage cans out
you
on
take
Sunday and they're
pictures?
staying there till Thursday.
Do you take pictures? Do you document
My neighbors
it?
have pictures of all this. That's why we want to see if the city would put it back on, instead of waiting a year.
Well, you and your neighbors don't have to wait till it's on the agenda. You can come in here at any meeting. You know,
Well, I
we will-
called up and they said the best thing for me to do is come in, try to get it on an agenda item so that we could all talk about it.
Has it been a year?
No,
No, it began on the 1st of January of this year.
yeah, so it's 6 months into it. So what could we do, John? Can we document, I mean, do we call the county? Do we enforce it? I mean, if they've got pictures and proof and,
They need to provide that information to the county and the sheriff or the police department because I can't do anything. We don't have an ordinance in place.
right. So I think until we look at it and do something with it, that's what you're gonna have to do, but you have to do it.
Right, and I have no problem doing it now. I mean, I was told that after
Yeah.
3 calls, we could shut them down. Well, I missed my opportunity on those 3 calls because I didn't want to be that neighbor, but now I'm going to be that neighbor.
Yeah, you have to be. They're being that neighbor, so why wouldn't you wanna be
And I said
that
the
neighbor?
owner is not responsive to his neighbors.
Yeah. Well, and we've worked hard on that. We are, you know, in the city here, but it's easier for us to let the county do it if they do it.
But see, the
If they're
county's
gonna
not
do
even,
it.
you know, this particular property has 3 cabins. I was told that cabin number 3 isn't a sleeping cabin, but when you go on the website, it's advertised as a separate sleeping
27,
cabin. So the county's not even doing what they're supposed to do. That's why I'm seeing if the city would look this up, take it up, so it has a little more bite, so we can do something about it instead of, you know, just keep getting it pushed on.
Okay. Anybody else have what?
I think we should just circulate to the council the rules that the county has.
You can do
And
that.
then probably set up, I would recommend a special meeting just to see.
You know,
If you want us to bring people in, then I would agree with it being a special meeting.
Yeah.
Because if you bring it into a regular meeting, we'll be here till 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, we would be.
Yeah,
Right.
but I think we would take that on a special meeting. You know, John, are you gonna give us some information what the county regs are?
I'll send each of you the rag. It's only like 3 pages long.
And the contact person, is it just the sheriff?
It is the sheriff's department after hours, land services during hours. The problem that you have is if people don't call till Monday morning, there's nothing anybody can do if you don't catch them in the act.
Yeah, but if they call Friday at 10 o'clock too.
Then you call the sheriff.
They gotta get here. Yeah, they gotta get here.
Mayor, if I can.
Sure.
I can set up our software with the county that I can show that it's a rental property if we have complaints. So if the officers go out there on a noise complaint or a lewd behavior or, you know, parking complaint's gonna be tough to do anything, but we can document it. We can show that it's a VRBO or a rental property and we can track them that way. But again, Jeff, if you don't call us, we don't know.
You know, I said, shame on me, but it's not gonna
Yeah,
happen anymore.
Because really, honestly, we haven't heard anything about them all summer. I mean, very little until you come up here, and we gotta hear about it.
But even if we called the county, you wouldn't hear about it, because I have a complaint line from them, but I don't know if that's gonna get relayed to the
Well-
city council.
Call these guys, huh?
Some other items that are popping up and just, you know, last week again, I had a call from Barstock that there were 2 trucks from Iowa with trailers parked right in front of their building
Camping?
all week long. No, they were just boat trailers and they couldn't park at the property they were staying at. So they just threw them out
Why didn't
in
they
the
tow
parking lot. Well, that's up to them, but we did get a hold of the owners and have them moved and unfortunately I wasn't there to find out where that property
Especially in July,
was.
unfortunately. Not that we don't respect your hardship, and we all agree with it. So, you know, I'd even say if you got, I'd come over there sometime if you're having a hard time, or give me the landlord if that's any good. I
Well,
mean,
so
I'll call.
landlord isn't receptive to
Is
the
there a
neighbors.
contact person in town that you've got a phone number for?
I have a contact, well, we have the landlord's number, but we also have, apparently I just received a call, or a phone number from the county. It's a complaint number that we're supposed to call. I think it's an after-hours number. Again, I don't know if anybody's gonna follow up on it, you know, but I will tell you that if, once the law is being broken again, we will call 911 and get either the sheriff's office, if it's theirs, or Cross Lake to come in, and we're gonna start documenting everything. But we just don't wanna be those neighbors that also, you know, use the police department for those kind of things.
I mean, I would just extend to you that if you want me to come out there and witness it too, and I'll go down and talk to the sheriff or whatever, because we kind of have an agreement with the county to see how it goes. And what we know, what we don't know, it's going to determine what happens in January. So we need to know.
Well, we'll start giving you a list of every time it
Did you
happens.
see how I hesitated when I said call me?
Well, I'm not gonna call you directly, but I'll call them and
No, actually, you
we'll
can.
get it moved on, so.
You could,
But I was just, you know, want you guys to think about considering, if you want to call it a special session, whatever, but I think this is something that it's only going to get worse, it's not going to get better.
well, it is, but the biggest thing that we'd like to try first is enforcement. And those people shouldn't be getting away with it. We should enforce it, we should shut them down. Because there are some good ones in town, and there's a lot of people who really like them. So if we can weed out the bad ones, that's the best success we can do.
All right.
That's what we'd like to do, and the only way to do it is by reporting them and putting the
right.
pressure on them.
All right, we'll do that.
Pictures, documentation, and don't be afraid to call these guys and
All right,
get
thank
them
you.
going. You bet. Thank
Dave,
you.
I was wondering if we should maybe invite someone from the county that is actually working in that department, maybe?
Yeah.
The last time I checked with the county, about a month ago, there were only, 20 or 25 registered for the whole city of Cross Lake. VRBOs registered with the county. So they're not, yeah.
What department's taking care of it? Land Services?
I mean, there's 200 of them in town here for sure, and they got 25 registered.
If you could, Mark, and start tracking, that would be a good thing too, Eric. Thank you.
I'll make sure, when we go out to calls, we'll ask, if it is a VRBO or if it's a, you know, private residence.
Yeah. Thank you.
So they only need 3 violation, or 3
I think,
calls?
I believe it's 3, but we would have to look at the ordinance. I haven't looked at it in the last month.
I don't think they should have to wait forever for
No,
compliance, so.
no, and again, we gotta know that it's going on, so.
Okay.
That was a good one. Anybody else? Okay, we'll close public forum. Next is the consent calendar. Anybody have any questions on it? Ted, I gotta call you up on that one, just because I want you guys to hear it. I don't understand it. It's a 3D specialties post for $2,280, and it's for the crosswalks we just ordered. I wish Bob Healy's was here, because I think he said that they were $400, and so I'm questioning that.
Originally, we were gonna put our 2-inch telespar post in to support the crosswalks. The engineers his group came forward and said they're not heavy enough to hold the solar panel and everything. And I needed to go to 2.5-inch posts. When I go to 2.5-inch posts, I have to have a breakaway at the ground for traffic to hit it and break away. 2-inch I can put in and they'll break away clean, no damage, or little damage to cars. So then it's a special base for these breakaways, it's a special mechanism for the breakaways. They came in at $6,200 for the posts, for the breakaway system and the posts. So it's the mechanism plus $6,200. The $2,200 that you see there was, I had some in my inventory and I was gonna use those posts for the telespar. And then when and then I was just purchasing new ones. I had them on hand because we use them for our stop signs. You've seen them on the corners now that we use. So the $2,200 now are those posts that we're not gonna use for the crosswalk. We'll just absorb them into our inventory and we'll use them on stop signs over the next couple of years, so.
But that's where I get confused on the math of it, because the 4 that we need to order are $6,200. We're approving $2,200 for it.
The $2,200 that's for the 2-inch posts. Remember I said I was gonna use 2-inch posts. The engineers told me I had to go to 2.5 inch.
I get that.
So that those 2-inch, that we were going to use, that I have already purchased, I have on hand. We'll just take and absorb those into our inventory and use them for stop sign posts, other places in town as we need them. And there'll be another bill that's coming in for $6,200 for the Telespar 2.5 inch that's coming. You haven't seen the $6,200 bill yet, I believe.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just confused by that, because now we're looking at a bill for $2,200 for posts for the signs that we're not gonna use, and we should expect a $6,200 bill coming in the future for the posts we have to get.
We'll use the posts in the future. We're just not gonna use them right now. The $2,200 posts, we're not gonna be using them as for that solar crosswalk.
But are these, you're taking out of inventory, or did you order these for these things?
We have those on hand.
So
That
what do-
$2,200 post, we have those on hand.
So what do we have to pay for them again for, though? That's where I'm confused.
We haven't paid for them yet. This is the bill for them, the $2,200 for those posts.
He ordered both. Both have been ordered, so we have to pay for
Okay.
them.
All right. I still don't understand it, but okay. Anybody else have any questions?
Okay, thank you.
I move we approve the consent agenda as submitted.
I second it.
Comments? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, we have a public hearing. John, are you going to take this? No? We got a road right-of-way vacation request from Lisa Parsons at 14095 Norway Trail.
Is the applicant here? I'll try to answer questions about the process, and then we also want to make sure we have open it up for public comment, but let's start with the applicant if they're here.
I'm not Lisa Parsons, that's my wife, I'm Chris Naton, just so you guys know. But we're married and she's at home at a softball game with my daughter, so.
All right.
Address is 14095 Norway Trail, just down from City Hall here. We actually did this about a year and a half ago, tried to get it vacated, and you guys didn't do it then, but we're hoping we can get you talked into doing it now. Nothing's really changed over there. I think pretty much you guys are very familiar with our piece of property down there. Maybe you're not, but it's 33 feet wide. It was a road to the island that no longer exists in front of my neighbor's Mike's. And it's basically, I've never seen it used ever, and I've been there for 11 years. I know there's been a lot of talk about it, and there's a lot of them around Cross Lake, and I was at a meeting last week about it, and I think mine is, or I should say me and Mike's, is almost impossible to make a public right-of-way there. There's no parking. We're pretty compact. I believe the road's only 12 feet wide going back to our area. The snowplow trucks actually turn around in all our driveways right now. There's basically, it's all growing up in thistles now, and then there's a bluff going down to the lake. It's virtually impossible to get to the lake off this 33 feet that the city owns.
Why do you call it a bluff? Is it truly a bluff?
Yeah, it's probably 8-10 feet tall from the lake.
So it's not a bluff.
Okay.
What? It's a steep slope.
Dave, I'm trying to make it sound as good as
I
possible.
know you are. I'm just making you honest.
It would be difficult to get in there. Actually, a tree fell over now into the lake, so it'd be really difficult. But me and our neighbors, we have a great neighborhood down there. Unlike, I feel bad for the other guy that was here. All us neighbors get along awesome. And they could speak for themselves on that too. We have a really great neighborhood down there. And we don't want, all the neighbors are on board with me and Mike, that we don't want no public right-of-way down there because just, it's so tight and we have a great neighborhood now. There was talk about green space at the previous meeting. Right now it's thistles. If it's granted to me and Mike, we will have it green space for real. We'll have grass there or native grasses, whatever we decide to do, but it won't be thistles and burning nettle right there. That's what it is now. The other beautiful thing, if this happens, is you'd have more revenue. Because every foot of lake shore is more taxes for the city of Cross Lake. So I think that's fabulous. That's the only time you'll ever hear me
Never seen
say
anybody with a smile on their face be
to pay
eager to
taxes.
pay more taxes.
You'll never hear me say that again either, Dave, ever. Am I on video? But yeah, that's the beauty of it. There's more revenue. I understand it's a tough decision for all these to take them one by one is my opinion on it. It's a tough deal. I believe there's 59 or 57 in the city. Too many, yeah.
Has anybody opposed or written any negative letters toward this?
Well, that's the purpose of the hearing, so there could be people here in the crowd, so we want to open it up, and then staff can report if they've seen anything in writing.
Okay.
We do have recommendations from some commissions too, but it doesn't really matter in the order, I guess, but typically.
But you put notification out to the people.
We gave notice. There's a lot of people here. I'm guessing somebody's here for this one. I don't know without asking.
Okay, can we,
I won't take the whole night up, Dave, but yeah, I'll let people speak.
Yeah,
And
let's
if there's
see
any
if there's
questions for
anybody
me,
here.
do you guys got any
not
questions?
yet, but we
Not
may
yet?
call you back
Okay,
up.
thank you.
Okay, thanks. Is anybody here in regards to this? Okay, please, come on up.
Hi, I'm Mike Cobes, 14096 Norway Trail. I've been here 23 years. No one has used the right-of-way in 23 years. For a long time, we just took care of it. And there was an issue, and then I guess the city did a couple of things. But Chris and I'll let somebody walk down to the lake on our property. I mean, it's not impossible. It's extremely difficult to do that on there. You guys have liability if something falls over or somebody hurts themselves on it. We would be taking your liability from you. And again.
So you're the adjacent neighbor?
I'm the adjacent neighbor.
Okay.
I'm totally in favor of it. Actually, I'm fine if he has all 33 feet. It's just, we have been working on this, well, I've been working on it for 15 years on and off, just trying to get someone to do it, because I actually went to the county, because what's platted out there, that island was lot 19. And when I got here, there was actually a little bit of an island left. There's
Loon's nesting on it too, if I remember.
Yeah, and now there's just a stick and a bunch of boats that hit it on July 4th because they don't see that it's an island. No. So the road is not going to anything anymore. I called the county. It was under a $500 tax forfeit. And I said I'd pay that. And they said, well, do you want to buy the island? And I said, sure. And they said, well, it's like X amount per feet of shoreline. I said, okay, it has 0 shoreline, so I don't care if you charge me $1 million a foot of shoreline because it's just not a lake, it's not an island anymore.
Okay.
So anyway, I'm all in favor, and that's what I got.
Thank you. Anybody else, please, come on up.
My name is Nancy Norsby. I'm at 13999 Cross Lake, so just right down the road here. Okay. And we have been here 1 year now this last 4th of July. And we're here to support what these guys want to do. If you go down to the end of Norway Trail down here, for a public access or for public use, I have absolutely no idea, A, where people would park, right? And then turning around or having additional vehicles down there, it just doesn't make sense. When you get down to the end of the road where this public access is, there's 4 driveways coming right into, that space. There's just no place to put cars.
So you support it?
We support it, yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else? Out of retirement.
Great. Mike Reardon, 14089 Norway Trail, and I'm not quite adjacent, but I'm right on the end of it, and people use my driveway as part of the turnaround issue. My wife and I, Claudia, and Ben, we both support this request and the vacation of the right-of-way. I think, the original intent to have the right-of-way and its use was probably correct, but that doesn't exist anymore. And to have any kind of other use down there really doesn't fit into that character of that neighborhood. And we just requested and had put in, the city put in a no outlet sign down there at Brook Street and Norway Trail, because we're getting turnaround traffic down there. We don't need more traffic down there. They turn around in my driveway, they back over our retaining wall. It's off the right of way, but it just, to have any other kind of use down there would not be very good, and it wouldn't be very safe. The street's 16 feet wide. It's not wide and can't support much use at all, so it's like
So
a
you
private
support it?
driveway. I support it,
Thank you,
that's
Mike.
right.
Anybody else out there? Okay, council, let's talk about it. Any thoughts?
I have a question.
Okay.
If we choose to vacate it, aren't we required to give half to a property owner and the other half to?
We're required to offer.
No, we're not required to do anything. So the law says who gets the land. We don't like give it or deed it or sell it. Your only role is whether to vacate or not vacate, or I guess a bit more careful than that. There's a bundle of rights with land ownership. You could vacate most of that bundle, but retain a utility easement or retain a conservation easement or something. But the land says if one guy owns on one side of this dedicated street and one owns on the other side, it goes half and half. The two landowners can then privately maybe swap or do whatever, but that's not a city function.
Right, that's what I'm saying, is that we couldn't vacate the right-of-way and give it all to one person. We don't have.
I think your only role, you could only vacate half of it, I guess, which would only affect half of the, and that would in effect go to one side, not the other, but no, I don't think you can direct who gets it.
I'm just saying you can't give one person 33 feet.
I don't see why or how, yeah.
But what we can do, Marcia, is we can require them to put it in a conservation or something where they can't do anything with it.
Green space.
Green space.
You could.
I mean, there's a lot of people who want to keep these access points not given away so that we get that green space. So back, within 75 feet of the lake or something like that, we could require them, we can't do anything with it.
You could do it within the 75 feet or within half the distance of the structural setback. So then our ordinance would allow, if they owned it, for them to develop up to 37.5 feet back from the lake, cut all the trees down, plant grass. But in that 37.5 back from the OHW, you could say limit it, make that the conservation easement, that it has to be maintained in a natural state. And they can't develop it.
At a minimum, I would support that.
I think we might be getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. We're talking about putting together a group to take a look at this whole thing. Why aren't we allowing that group to look at all of them?
This application was in before we changed that. I don't know if that.
And direct it to that. If I'm understanding correctly, we could do that.
One of the I'll try to respond to that some. One of the commissions did recommend to stop and come up with a better policy again. My reaction to that would be, and John's actually worked on this some already, working on the right procedure in terms of what committees see it, or maybe whether you go on site or not, or what fact-finding you do. That portion of committee fact-finding or policy-making makes sense to me. But what's happened time and time again, and I think once they want to do it again, you can't have policies about vacations globally. This one is specific to this site, and these neighbors got up and spoke about this site. So it doesn't even make sense to me to have a policy about this is how we're going to handle vacated or lake accesses, because that's not how the law works. So you could structure it to have more, and there's no rush. I think they've been trying for a while to get this. I'm not saying don't table it. I'm just making sure to caution against commissions or councils should not be spending time trying to come up with a global policy on how to handle all 59 of these, because every one of them is going to have different facts. Some are used, some are not used, some are on a bluff, some are not. Everyone, it's like a variance. You can't have a policy about how we're going to handle each variance.
Then who's going to, have these been surveyed?
Yes.
They have been?
Yes.
It's in the packet.
So we know exactly where the pins are and where these will go? Because the majority of these, we have no idea.
I'm sorry, yes, sir, I don't mean to be rude.
Oh, no, that's fine.
Yeah, it's been surveyed a few times. We've been before the council. I think the first time I was at the city for this was '07 or '08. So, yes, sir, it has been surveyed and gone through, and we did, I think you said it's in the packet, I think we got.
It's in the packet, yeah.
Oh, yes, sir.
But each one is going to have to be looked at individually by the committee, not as a package.
That's what some of the commission minutes made it look like, and past commissions have tried to come up with policies about Lakeshore in general, and I don't think that's appropriate. That doesn't mean you should vacate this one, by the way. I mean, that's a council decision, but you're supposed to hear from the public. If you think you need more time to maybe go look at the site yourself, for example, or give more direction to, hey, what about a conservation easement, and table it back to the two commissions before you make a final vote, that all makes sense to me, but just, I think it's inappropriate to try to have some kind of, because we've done in the past, and I think it's wrong. Don't have a global policy about lake accesses, because each one of them, there's going to be some that are similar to each other, but everyone's unique. And some probably need to stay, and some need to go, but you can't say that for 59 as a group.
Yeah, because they're looking through the packet, they're from 0 feet wide to 365 feet wide. It's a real variance, and it's a real
Oh, sure.
quagmire.
Well, and some are used and some are not. That's the first test of a vacation is, if it's used by the public, you should not vacate it, even if somebody asks for it.
But I guess I'm erring on the side of caution.
That's no problem whatsoever. I wanted to kind of, once again, repeat, because these kind of keep coming up, and some of the same arguments come up, and so I'm just trying to make sure we get the right framework to how to talk about them. But we have one more on the agenda, and that might be a completely different vibe from the public. We don't know, and that's what hearings are for.
If I may, and I really appreciate you guys are in charge.
Come up to the mic.
I really appreciate that you guys are in charge, but we've been cautious for 14 or 15 years, and nothing has changed. No one uses it. It's just overgrown. It's all weeded out. And so I'm not trying to be difficult, but that's a long time to keep coming back here and coming back here. I think the last time the one gentleman from the city works here said, just get rid of it because it's not there. We don't want to keep it up. I'm not sure what else we can do to make any better argument, I guess is my concern.
Well, one of mine is to make sure that we know what property is involved. That's one of the main things.
Yeah, well, you do. You have it.
It's been surveyed.
Yeah.
I see that.
Thank you.
Ted, is there any use by your plowing guys or anything for this? Is there any reservation you have?
How about Chip for, if there's a fire down that neck of the woods, where do you get your water? You haul it in, or you just go in between the house? Everywhere else. All right.
Mr. Mayor, right now, we dump the snow off to the side and turn around in one of the driveways right now, so
It's not going to impact you at all.
I don't think so.
Okay, so my thought about this is when we first opened up this can of worms a year or so ago, really, we didn't have a lot of criteria with it. The one criteria we had is that it was not being used by anybody else. This one here seems like there's no interest by anybody else to use it.
Didn't we have some issues with this a couple of years ago?
They had some improvements in the right of way that they had.
He's got a trailer or something on it.
The one big question that you guys have to answer, and it's required by the state statute, is what is the public benefit of vacating the right of way? And if you can't show that there's a public benefit beyond the people that are gaining that property, just them gaining it can be a reason for you to say yes, but it can't be the only reason. You have to show it as for general public that's out there. What is the benefit to the public of you vacating this right of way? And that's the criteria right in the state statute.
So one of them would be to not mow everything down to the lake.
Correct, you could create that
How far back
conservation
did you
easement. You
talk?
could create an easement for,
Or 75 feet.
you could create an easement
Do
for
the whole
Ted to
system.
turn around in there, to back the snowplow up into it. Those are benefits to the public.
As this gentleman said, for 14 years, they've been bringing this forward. Another benefit is that we wouldn't have to use this time up to keep talking about it year after year.
Can I just add, the last time they went for the vacation, the DNR did send a letter opposing it. And I think that is why it was denied the last time, is because of the DNR. Yes, they did.
Can you tell us?
They have a whole letter.
Oh. Environmental reasons? I mean, did you read it or anything? So if we had the whole 75-foot setback, on no mow zone, leave it wild.
So that
I mean, that would,
is not in here.
No, she's got it sitting right there.
We could read it into the record if, or put it on the screen if you'd like to see it before. That was from the second of the 3 times I think they've applied. We did notice them again, but we did not receive a comment, it sounds like. Did we have any other written comment? We forgot to ask that out loud.
We did not receive any comments in planning and zoning.
But were the appropriate people like DNR notified?
Yes.
And they didn't comment?
But they have in the past, I sure said.
Yeah.
I guess I'd like to know what the DNR's comment was.
We could put it on the screen, or
Yeah,
I could
I
read it,
guess,
or you could
you
read
know.
it, or.
I mean, I know what the criteria that the DNR looks at is, what are the public benefits? And then the second question is, how will the vacation impact the conservation of natural resources? And usually their answer is, you're getting rid of that green space, so that's part of their response.
Excuse me, but isn't generally the DNR opposed to any of these vacations every single time?
In general,
It's
yes.
like almost like a formality.
It is. But that doesn't mean,
I'm not saying that's not having any validity, but
they do deny for different reasons, though, so I think that's why I said put it on the screen. I think it is important to, they're not all written the same. Each one is different. They might have different reasons for them.
and the fact that they were notified this time and they didn't respond to it.
Or maybe they know we have this in the public record. I don't know. I haven't spoken to the DNR about this file.
I think the community's concern and the DNR's concern is the impact of the lake, and if we enforce that 75-foot no leave it go wild thing, the only thing we're gonna do is give them some ability to build a little bit more or do something more with the property they have. So I would support it. I mean, this is exactly one of those that we spent way too much time on, and nobody appears to wanna have any use for it, so.
I'm not sure I haven't heard from all of you, but if there is consensus to actually take action tonight and with that conservation easement logic, I don't believe that was part of their application, so it would probably be best to have John or someone kind of state exactly what we're thinking for a dimension to that, and ask each neighbor they're both here, to confirm whether they would accept that modification to the application. So it's crystal clear before we vote on it. Or table it, if a couple of you haven't even spoken yet, so we don't have to do this tonight.
Brad, I don't understand it's kind of described here. What description would they have?
No, sorry, I didn't say it the right way. So their application is just to vacate, period. You're gonna add a little wrinkle to it and say, fine, we'll allow the vacation, but we want to put a string on it. You know, it can't be, it needs to stay in a conservation state for the X amount of feet of it, not the whole thing, but the lakeside 35.5 or 75, whatever you're gonna do.
Right.
And since that was not clarified in the original application, let's pin that down if you are ready to vote as a group, and then ask the both of them to come up and confirm or deny that they're willing to live with that. Or maybe they'd rather table it and wait for another council or more commission discussion, and I'm not, I don't know your answer, but did that make sense now? So they asked to just vacate it all without any talk about conservation.
No,
I think they said that that's what they want to do, but that's different than putting that as a written condition. Talk and written findings are two different things completely.
Yeah.
We're okay if you do conservation. We're not planning on putting in a building or
I think that's in the interest of the people in the city.
Yeah.
I mean, that's another in the interest of.
we weren't planning on doing it.
Well, it'd be nice to, why don't you both get up in front of the microphone and just state who you are and that you're okay with that.
Mike Cobes, 14096 Norway Trail, and I'm fine if you add a conservation, whatever that term is. What's the term? Conservation stipulation.
You had it.
Yep.
Chris Nain, 14095 Norway Trail, and I'm fine with the conservation easement if you guys pass it, be great.
And Mr. Kolstad recommended, not the whole thing, I don't think, but so many feet from the lake. But there's not a right answer to that question, but we want to clarify 75 feet from the OHW?
Yeah, you can say 75 from the OHW, no development. I mean, it's theirs. They just can't develop it, which means They can maintain and get rid of invasive weeds and dead trees, dying, disease, posing a safety hazard, but the rest of it has to remain in a natural state.
What kind of lot is that are they required to come in for a variance to do anything with that lot? Is it a very tight lot?
It's small. If they wanted to tear down that cabin and rebuild something bigger, they would be in for a variance, just because they're so close to the neighbor's property and the corner there. They don't meet the setbacks.
Dave, our cabin's 427 square feet.
Right, but I'm just saying, if we say 75 feet back, what would that do to the impact of a variance?
That would be, actually 75 would be about half, or a little less than half of what they would be getting if you vacate. They would be able to develop the last 75 feet.
I mean, it's a benefit to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
It increases your
The
impervious.
entire width is 151 feet, so he's right. It's about half if that's what you pick. I mean, it takes a motion and a second and three people to say yes on 75 or 50 or whatever. But I wanted them to affirmatively say we're okay with that before
When
you
you have a
that.
family of four and have a few people up, 427 feet, it's pretty tight.
We get to know each other.
You
That's
really
right.
well.
Yeah.
Love my family.
See if you
but-
get along.
Thank you.
You should do that before you get married. Are we ready for a motion on this?
Well, that's up to you guys.
I'm gonna make a motion, we approve it with the 75-foot setback conservation restriction.
I'll second that.
Is there any other discussion on it? We good? Brad?
If there's a vote and three of you say yes, then it's passes, is all I can tell you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations, motion carries.
Tell me where you'll be later, drinks are on me.
14 years, it does get the job done, doesn't it?
Well, thank you, seriously, guys. Thank you
Yeah,
very
you
much.
bet.
Thank you.
Overdue. Okay, next, what's next? We got another one. Road right-of-way vacation request from Mike and Lisa Roca, 12204 Manhattan Point. Kevin, it looks like you're gonna grab the wheel on this one, huh?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kevin McCormick, Land Design Solutions, 11821 Lake Trail, Cross Lake, Minnesota. Thank you. We've got another road vacation request. I think this one hopefully is pretty self-explanatory in its nature. This particular lot has been in the same plat since the early 20s. There's no indication from my client or anyone a use of this particular 20-foot strip. We've got an extremely steep bluff. This is the north side of Trout Lake. We've got a bluff condition there that runs about 62% down, and it runs about 68 feet high. It's a pretty difficult one to use. It leads to nowhere. This particular area, I surveyed this lot with Short Elliott Hendrickson 11 years ago. Nothing has changed. This was a survey for a variance. So the roadway as it's being used is basically an entrance for the Rocas to enter the property. And that's the way it's been since they've owned it. We're talking a neighborhood about 50 years. So their entrance to this property is built in portions of this road right away. It stayed that way from the city notice that it's been here since the variance in 2010. So basically 11 years have passed since the variance was done. Nothing else has been done on this particular roadway. It's extremely difficult. There isn't a good way up or down. We've been through a lot of these type of things in these 20-foot strips with these bluff areas. Very difficult to construct them, let alone maintain them. So this one also, my client owns on both sides of the property. This isn't really a land grab for him. They've been using this area for quite some time now with these heavy bluff conditions and the change in the ordinance. My client approached me and he wanted to see if he could also get this road vacated. That's the long and the short of it. I think when we go through some of these items that you've been discussing this evening, the benefits to the public, again, we're in a situation, the best of my knowledge, public can also weigh in, of course, that we have a non-use situation. We've got an extreme bluff situation here, and we've got no particular use of this piece of property for several years. As was just stated before, the DNR has not weighed in on anything on this one. This is a tough one. This is even steeper than the last bluff vacation we were looking at. So I think the general health, safety, and welfare of the public, vacating this roadway and allowing the Rokas to maintain it is of good benefit for the city. The taxes on this, it's not just the 20-foot strip. We've prepared the easements that will attach to this. So again, now we have an 80-foot strip of land. It meets the minimum requirements of the 80% rule. It doesn't require the city to have any more variances on this property if it was to be built on. So those things are definitely on the table as benefits to the city. And again, you know, we don't have any objection that I'm aware of from the DNR on this one. And that's basically it, unless anyone has any questions for me. We'd like to reserve the chance to rebut if there's anything that
Kevin,
comes up.
how old is the house?
Mr. Roca is here. Mr. Roca, how old is the house? There you are.
We acquired it in 2008.
You should come up to
It's really hard to.
Come up, please.
Yeah,
Come up.
okay, so, thanks for the opportunity. We acquired the property in 2008. It has been part and parcel. They've added, build, you know, a bedroom to it. I got to think this structure dates back to the 40s.
Okay.
For sure.
I mean, there's a lot of encroachments on the thing, setbacks and whatever. How long has the driveway been there? Forever?
Yeah, it comes up on the aerials back into the 60s that I can see. Some of those get a little fuzzy. But again, the driveway's been here and in use as is for over a decade since I visited the property at last survey.
Okay, does anybody else on the council have any questions? And then we'll open it up to public. Okay, Kevin, let's open it up. Any public input from anybody? Please, come on up.
Lori Honig, 122-12-219, Shady Wood Street. We're across from this one. We spoke at the Public Works Commission meeting last week. We were we're not in favor of it because it's giving away, it's making that entire lot then 140 feet wide with the two lots that you currently own and then the extra 20 feet. It just doesn't seem right to be doing that. Something was said at the commission meeting about you can't go down to the lake, but you could certainly sit on the top of the bluff and look at the lake, couldn't you? And that's not against the rules of enjoying the lake. Is that right, John? No. So it's not that it's not available for people to use. It's been hard to see where that was, and we haven't used it in a long number of years. But I understand from other neighbors that there have been other people using it. I'm not sure if any of them were able to get here tonight. In talking with one of the other neighbors who did use that area a lot when the Ruth lived there before, the previous owner to the other lot that Mr. Nunez bought, he was suggesting leaving the 20 feet, but just moving it over and then just making it compact so that your two lots could be together and that access would still be there. So just a thought to be in there.
And you mentioned that suggestion because you'd be favorable for that?
I would for that, yeah, because it still gives us an option.
I bet you the guy that's over on that other lot probably wouldn't be though, huh?
Why? Well, I don't understand why he wouldn't, but of course I couldn't talk to him.
Well, it'd be people walking right next to your kitchen window, that's why.
Well, we would have been walking through his, and that felt a little uncomfortable, but it's still, but still you could do that. So.
Okay,
That's what it was, what it's worth.
thank you. Please, come on up. Now's your chance.
My name is Harold Hawes. I live on 12143 Manhattan Point Boulevard, sort of across the street. I've been in this area for 19 years, and this particular property, I knew Ruth Muniz had the property next door. I had my boat on her property for maybe 17 years. She had a trail down to the lake, and I mowed her lawn a lot, and I mowed this other lawn. I knew there was 3 different people that lived there, and it just happened that that driveway is the whole right-of-way for him to get in and out. There's no room to make a driveway there anywhere unless he went through his drain field. So this party bought Ruth Muniz's place, and it's very sad that they're trying to, well, let me backtrack. A few weeks ago, Anderson Blacktopping Company was in there putting down gravel on the driveway. And I talked to the city or some authority people that's against the rules. They were supposed to get permission to do this, so they broke the rules right there. And that particular house was owned by one of the former mayors. They did some adding on there that the city didn't even make them take it off. And I'm very disappointed that they don't leave that green spot there. What if somebody wants to walk up to that spot and look at the lake? It's public property, but every time this all happens, people tell us, hey, you can't be here. And all these right-of-ways are the same way. And I see no reason why this should be cleared away. In the next many years, Manhattan Point will probably have a lot of homes in there, and this area should be kept open. And maybe someday they could build a stairway down there. I mean, I'm talking 20, 30, 40 years. But we can't give these all away right now. That's wrong. Just like Cavalier Brothers said, this is forever. And across the street where I live, we have an association called Cavalier Woods. And that was formed many years ago. And there's about 10 homes in there. And all these homes have no access to the lake. It's up to the city to open up some of these things, but they're not trying very hard. My son is Kevin Hawes. We own 5 properties in that area off the lake. And it would be a crime if this property was vacated. It would set a precedent for everybody else. I'm sorry, but all these people that moved in there, they knew this was a right of way, and it's used as a driveway. And it's just sad that the council is even hearing this request. And I think there's other people that are deathly against this thing. Even though that right of way, you can't walk down there, no, you can't. but it's an area that should be left open. Now, why don't they trade this 20-foot to the other side of his property, tear down the garage, and you would have your situation resolved.
Harold, you knew the previous owners of the property, correct? Didn't you say the name of somebody who built that house originally?
No, Ruth Muniz
Owned that house?
owned the house, and when I moved in there, she gave me permission to use that, her.
But she put that driveway into that house? I mean,
No.
Oh,
She
that-
had a different driveway completely.
Oh, and then they moved it, and now they got a drain field.
But ever since I lived there was 3 or 4 different people, and this driveway was put in, there's no other place for a driveway. There's a,
Not with the drain field there.
there's a drain field there, there's no other place. So the city has been used as a driveway for all these people. One of the former mayors, I forget who he was, and I have been mowing both lawns for many years up there, so I'm very familiar with the area.
Okay, Harold, I got a feeling that can the council speak about this for just a minute?
Okay.
And if you feel the need to, we'll give you an opportunity to come back up. Can we do that? Because my personal feeling is that this is gonna fall into one of those that the committee's gonna have to look at.
Well, I hope so,
Or-
because this is very serious to give away that property
Yep.
now.
But like you and the other person said, maybe they could go to the other side of the lot. and
Yeah,
do an
it would mean
adjustment.
tearing down a garage, but that garage is probably 50 years old, 60 years old.
Well, that might be part of our negotiation here, so.
Okay, well, thank you.
You betcha. Thank you very much for coming up. So, what do you guys think? Is there anybody else from the public? Are you still public?
Yeah, no, I never retired, I just wanted to rebut a couple of things, and I appreciate the gentleman's comments, I truly do. When we look at the Minnesota statutes, present potential use of the land, there is no present use of it. And what he was referring to was access through the other owner's property, not this particular road. That's a whole different story. That is a whole different story. How the driveway got there, I can't tell you. I don't think any of us could know. It just shouldn't have happened. But when you look at the statute, this serves no practical purpose, and it gives no present and potential use of this particular piece. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kevin.
I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
You show that the lot is 80 feet wide. I assume you did the survey?
Yes, sir.
Oh, show that the lot is 80 feet wide?
No, altogether, each parcel is 60 feet.
Yes.
Add 20 in the middle, you get 140 total.
Because I'm reading 80 feet here.
That's the right of way, and then it necks down into 20.
Correct.
So it's
Correct.
140 feet.
Correct.
And
And
just so-
again, these
all
would be,
combined.
yep, and again, these would be separate parcels. If you were to vacate it, that 20 feet would go to this parcel. And again, the use for you guys is, it alleviates the need for further variances on the property. Yeah, same person could still own it. Yep, yep.
Okay. I got a comment I'm just dying to say too. Go ahead.
Lori Honig again. There's nothing to stop you from combining parcels after the fact. There's
Right.
nothing to stop you from doing that, and then you get one of the gigantic one.
Right. Okay,
that's-
thanks, Laura. So what I hear the neighbors say is that they'd be okay with moving it over to the side. So that's something for us to consider. It's an option.
Say no, period.
I did.
That's, this one goes to the committee.
My concern with this is that I know that the whole point is sprinkled with these accesses. I don't have them on a drawing right now, because I think it's important for us, for the people in Cavally and anybody that's in the inner circle, that within a reasonable distance, that they have some access to the lake. Doesn't mean we have to keep all of them, but we don't know what shape any of these are in. This one's obviously really steep, and And about the only thing people could do is the same thing that people did on the south side of the island, is watch fireworks, watch the sunset go down. That is a benefit, you know?
Yeah.
It's a subjective value to people, but I think we need to find out, have somebody at least survey that, well, these might be usable, these are, well, nobody's ever done anything with them, before we start, at least have that down. So I'm with you. Yeah, I'm with you too.
Okay, so Aaron, but John, you got something?
No, I agree. I would not approve it as submitted currently, so.
So why don't somebody make a motion?
Do the applicants have a problem with moving the right-of-way to the side?
I think they're probably hearing what's going on here, and they might withdraw or come back.
Could I
Sure.
chime in on that?
Yep.
Right now, if you were to vacate the property and each parcel took 10 feet, they would meet the 66% rule and there would still be 2 parcels there. If they were to take the 20-foot out of the middle and move it over to the side, and then you combine the 2 together, they've effectively combined those 2 together forever in one lot that is 120 feet wide. And the only way they'd be able to separate them then would be to get a variance from the city after that's done. So if they combine them together and move it over to the side, you've created one 120-foot lot.
But that's not up to us to stop
Yes, it is, because that follows the state law that says individual lots that don't have a primary residence on one of them in shoreland, if it's not 66% of the lot width and lot size that we require in our ordinance, they effectively are combined together into one lot and they can't sell them separately.
Right.
But today they can.
Today they can, and if you vacate it, they can keep them separate.
They can put 10 to each one.
Yes.
70 foot.
Then they meet the 70-foot, which is bigger than the 66% rule that we have.
Well, I think the flag that went up here is, again, we've got neighbors, potential users in opposition to this, so that I think one of you two should make a motion.
Can we table this, and then, how much did they have to pay for this?
$1,000 plus the survey.
Well, one of your possibilities is not to deny, but just to table and give commissions more time to do a view of that point, or whatever you direct the commissions or request the commissions to do.
Right, and that's, yeah.
That's a good idea, Dave. Yeah.
I'll make a motion to table it. They don't have to repay or pay again until this committee's formed, and we'll just sit on this until such time as, at least in my mind, I want to see what's in the area that's close. And
I'll second that.
And it'll give us the committee a starting point, because they can start looking at this one.
that side within this, right.
Okay, we got a motion and a second.
Oh, fine.
Any other discussion? Motion to table, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we've got one more item here, is criteria proposed by staff for vacation of right-of-ways. Did you put something together, or is it
Yes.
in the packet here?
So just so you know, it would be item D3 in your packet. Previously, when these discussions came up, I went through and I looked at every single plat in the city that was on the water, and I found all of the right-of-ways that were designated on there. I believe in the process, including this one that got, or the one that got vacated earlier, there's like 5 of them that have been vacated over the years, some of them by the city council, some of them by court order. And I don't have a lot of details on why, it just said it was court ordered. What we propose as staff is that you put together a committee. We suggest it would be the department heads and maybe 2 council members to begin with, because you get 15 people in a group and nobody can make a decision, so it should be smaller. I would encourage you to have it for policy formulated for the process for somebody to vacate, very similar to our if you're going to go for a variance. You come in, you do a DRT, a Development Review Team meeting with the staff. We look at what you're proposing to do, whether it's to vacate or to move it over. We go through a list of, we look at this list of questions that are there, and if it's being used already, at that point, we can advise whoever that property owner is to, that it's not going to happen. It's no sense in wasting your money and your time to ask for it because it's being used and they're not going to vacate it. We can't tell someone they can't apply for it, but we would advise them appropriately, just like we do with a variance. Once they get to that point that they decide, well, I think I'm going to do this, then we would give them the application and we would explain in detail how to fill it out and all of the items that we need so they understand. You don't just pay $1,000 and come up here and ask if it can be done. A survey needs to be done. There's other pieces that go with it, and then Brad's involvement on that side for legal purposes. We come up with the questions, the potential questions that you see in item D3 are based not only on state statute, but what the League of Minnesota Cities talks about and the DNR. What is the criteria that everybody should look at when you're looking to vacate any road? And it should be for any road, not just the ones that terminate at the lake. Also, as staff, we've heard in the past that you want to know where these are at and what's going on them, because we have criteria that says you can't develop them, you can't use them, you need a use agreement. We don't know where they're at. We don't know what's going on the ones that are out there until someone comes in for a variance or a vacation request. So that's when we might get a survey that shows all these things. I have found them in our process. When people have come in to ask for variances, they go through the process, they bring the application into us with the survey, and we find out that their steps off their side of their house, their deck, their well, half of their septic system is in the right-of-way. So we feel that if you want to know what's going on, the city needs to go out and survey them. It doesn't all have to be done in one big fell swoop that you got to spend $500,000 to do this. If we could take it in little bites, maybe next year we ask for Manhattan Point and Anchor Point, because those are the ones with the more dense development and potentially people coming in to ask for these vacations. Find out what's going on. We can do an inventory then, we can go out and take pictures. And even if they don't come and ask for a vacation in the future, we can go out there periodically and look at it and find out who is actually creeping over into the right-of-way, who's made their lawn 10 feet wider, or put their sprinkler system in the right-of-way where it shouldn't be, put a new driveway in where they didn't have permission. We need to know what's happening before we can proceed forward with what we're going to do. So my recommendation and our recommendation as staff was to have the city do the surveys, do the inventory, develop this criteria that we're going to look at and make it standard, fair, and consistent. And if you don't have that fairness and consistency and you don't know where you're starting from, I don't think you can proceed forward in a reasonable manner to make good decisions.
Okay, so I think we should form the committee first and get a flyover overview of these, because if we go ahead and survey all these things, it's going to be a couple $100,000, something.
Oh, certainly, it's probably going to, if you do all 59 of, or whatever's left of the 59 that I found, they're probably $2,000 to $3,000 each.
Right.
So, yes.
So it's, I think before we spend $200,000 on doing it, we should prioritize them, bite off chips. I also think that we should open this committee up to a few citizens that could apply to be on the committee, and, we kind of need to have a little credential or reason why they think they would be an added value to that committee. But I would like to open it up to the citizens to do it. Yes, Mr. McCormick.
Mayor, I would like to volunteer my services to be on that committee.
We're going to have an application that you'll have to fill out. I think it'll be the process. Okay. So that's my opinion of that.
How many citizens are you talking about? Because if you get it up, like John mentioned, you get it up to 15, all it's going to be is a fight.
Yeah, no, I think 3 or 4. I think look at the applications. Look at the, what do we have to offer? What do we have coming in?
I I think there's going to be more and more every month.
And again, my recommendation, just mine, I would place a moratorium on accepting applications until this committee has established what your criteria is.
Yeah.
Then you won't have any of these until afterwards.
Okay, so I would like to open it up for applications from the public to come in and apply for it. And then, you know, maybe the council should look at them and decide
how many
should be on there and how many. We'll see what interest we have.
I think one council member would be sufficient if you're open.
Run, or two if they want to, but no more than two, you know, but yeah. Whoever, you know.
And staff?
It's another man.
Which staff?
I'm sorry, I assume.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so do we need to make a motion for that?
You would need to form that committee, yes, and then if you want to do a moratorium,
Yeah.
until this is created,
Yeah.
I think that would be wise.
So the motion would be to form a committee, take applications from residents to be on the committee. Council will review the applications and decide who should be on it. A few residents, staff, council, up to 2. That's my motion.
And a moratorium.
Well, should we do this?
I just, one comment on the moratorium. I mean, nothing in here really changes the state statute of what a vacation requires. It does, just like we heard earlier in the meeting, you can't be like the county regulating, you know, VRBOs. You can be more restrictive, so that might come out of that, but there already is a state statute for vacations. I just wonder, I guess it's been years, people have been talking about it, but someone gets a survey done and finds out that part of their house is in the road right away, or this committee might take a year. There are very good purposes of vacations, and you know it when you see it. I don't know if any are out there right now, but if somebody's trying to do something with their property, moratoriums apply citywide. You can't make an exception because this is a really good case.
Well, a moratorium would just put everything on hold until we.
Right, so if someone's building, they find out there's a
Our
problem.
staff isn't taking the time to do it. It'll just put a freeze on everything.
Right,
I
I'm just
think
making
that'd
sure
be
you understand what that means. That means that you can't accept a vacation with, you know, there have been quite a few, not just along the lake, but in streets outside of lake areas that you've approved over the years.
Yeah, but this doesn't affect the approved ones. They're done
It affects any road right away in the city of Cross Lake.
in the future.
No. Well, that's what a moratorium means. You can't vacate anywhere in the city. Until you have your committee, and I don't know how long it's gonna take, but there's a lot of them, so it's gonna take you some time to process 59 accesses and do whatever you're gonna do.
Are you talking about putting a moratorium just on the ones that end into the lake? So I think that's 50 whatever, isn't it?
That's less restrictive than all streets, but
Because otherwise, if we want to vacate a street out there somewhere, it has to fall under this the way it's sitting right now today, or what was proposed.
we just did one for Perkins Row. Reed's did one, and Cross Lakes, you know, Town Square.
I think there's a difference, though, between someone coming in with an application asking to vacate and the city proceeding forward in the process of normal business to vacate by resolution. There's a difference.
But I think his point is we need to be careful how we.
Yes.
Okay, finish your motion there, Mr. Schroeder.
No, you started on it.
Well, first of all, those are two different motions in my mind.
The
One is form a
motion
committee.
only is to form a committee.
Yeah, so let's
It has
run
nothing
that
about
through.
the moratorium.
I second that.
Okay, any other discussion? That's clear, Shar?
Yes.
Okay. Everybody good with that? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The committee will be formed. Next, the moratorium. What do you think, Brad? Should we not do anything?
Well, I'm
Just let
not
it go?
saying that. I'm just saying there are good purposes for vacations. They're not all like taking land grabs. I mean, you're just
Well,
thinking of ones that you don't like. There's good ones, you know.
Can we do nothing about it and leave it up to John to really instill in people when they come in with something?
Well,
to say
there's
that-
several ways. I'm not saying don't do a moratorium, but if you do it, be careful and be restrictive. Or you have the power to say no under the current process. You just have tonight, and you did a couple meetings ago. It's not like
Takes a
you
lot of
have no
time.
power. I mean, you have full discretion to deny a vacation application. Does that really need a moratorium?
I'm just thinking that if I knew more about 3 blocks one way and three the other way, in this area, we could come back and decide on this.
Well, then you can table like you did tonight on the second one,
But
without a,
we'll just
without a
say, I
moratorium.
don't know how long that's gonna take. 6 weeks, 2 months? I don't think we should wait 6 months. I mean, these people are probably wanting to get this done right away, and I don't wanna belabor it anymore.
And a moratorium might not affect anybody. I'm just saying be careful. I have no idea who's out there wanting to, or what's gonna be discovered.
And if we don't understand these, we can just say, we're gonna get more time for your particular.
If the moratorium started and a couple months from now you get a good application, it could prod you to hurry up and finish your report or stop the moratorium, I suppose, is another way to think it through. You don't have to keep it on in perpetuity.
I think we should just proceed with case-by-case basis and move forward and get the committee together and get our inventory and get moving.
So I would encourage any citizens who want to apply to come in. Char, do you have those applications? Or are they online or something, or do you have to make one
Well,
up?
I will probably have to add this committee to the existing one, yes.
But just so we do it as soon as we can.
So if we table this with no date in mind, is there a 60-day window that we have to get back,
It's a normal land use permit. I think we've had research on that before. I think is what I can't remember. We had to, yeah, it's not.
It's not a normal land use.
The league
so
gave
there
us a
is
memo
no-
on that. No, it's not, meaning we have more than 60 days, yeah.
There is no 60-day limit.
All right. So we just want to keep this on the council agenda with this as a old business.
Yep.
And try to figure out how to
Try
get
to
out
move
there,
it
look
forward.
at it, so we all are prepared to talk about it for 6 more meetings.
Or whatever. Okay.
All right.
Okay, we're good with that? Okay, now it's the mayor and council members' report. I'm going to start out with a recommendation for a commission appointment. And Joel, it's awful nice of you to step up again. We're going to recommend Joel Knipple as an alternate on the planning and zoning. Do you accept that, Mr. Knipple? Do you accept that appointment? All right, I thank you.
I'll second it.
Is there a motion?
All right, there's a,
We need a motion?
I make a motion to appoint Joel, and Aaron is the second.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Joel. Next, I see Sandy back there, and I just want to mention anybody, we have lost a member of our community in the last couple of weeks. Sandy's husband, Dale, dedicated a lot of service to the city. And we just say, I want to extend our sympathies to you, Sandy, and our appreciation for all you guys have done. Thank you.
Thank you, and we're going to miss him.
Dale was a big part of what was going on when I started a number of years ago. He got to do the rookie training. Thank you.
Okay, next, we got some fire hall remodel costs. Mike, do you want to run through these? You've spent some time on these.
Sure, I can go through these. The ones you're looking at are on, in your council packet on E2A. And if you go to the last page of that item, you'll see in the middle of the page, there's 4 bills that are included in there, totaling $270,103.05. These are 4 of the work orders that you approved at your last council meeting.
Okay.
So you should approve all 4 of those.
So
for payment.
everything is current?
Yep.
Okay.
I can take this next one too. Item E2B is a change order for mold mitigation in the amount of $9,352.70. Now, at our last council meeting, the question was asked, what was it for? Was there any report? What can we see on that to know that it's been mitigated? So I did contact the project manager at High Tech and asked him those questions. And if you look at the bill, it says certified asbestos air sampling technician for bulk sampling or air monitoring, and certified asbestos air sampling technician for bulk sampling on air monitoring. So I asked him, I said, what does that mean? Is there a report we can bring to the council to show that the mold problem has been mitigated and the air is good and we have a healthy, safe building for our staff to work in? What we found was with what testing they did, their testing was limited to what they had to fix during the reconstruction process. So Andy has come back and said there was no testing of the air done post-construction. So there is no report to provide you for that. So what I would recommend at this point, and if Chip has anything to add to this, he can step up here too. But I think from a health and safety aspect, you probably want to know that the problem's been fixed. Have a qualified person come in and do their testing and say, yep, now that the building's done, we don't have any mold issues, or we didn't detect any.
So was this test from last August, or?
This was from a year ago when they started working with the contractor, pulling pulling walls apart, determining what to fix. And
Chip, can you come up and speak to this? Only because I have a couple of questions that I think you know the answer to. During the process of the remodel, under the concrete was one question, and they tore it up and they sampled the sand, the dirt. Are you aware of any written report or anything, or how did that get approved?
I don't recall seeing any reports of any.
So you were just verbally told we did it and it's good?
I don't know if I was told anything on that area.
You what?
You talking about the concrete?
Yeah, just when they did it, I mean.
I was told the same thing that you were
Yeah,
told.
but I mean, that's it, just told.
That's all yeah.
I think we were both there. And they
Yeah.
told us that.
I don't think they ever did any sampling throughout the construction as they put the building back together. Like we talked about when Braun was here a year ago, how we were supposed to test it throughout the phases, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I think during the process, we were all satisfied that the mold was taken care of.
Removed, correct.
So now, after the fact, do we want to require them to give us another mold report, or do we want to just cut them loose? And if the city wants to get another mold report, do we want to do that, or?
That's up to you.
Yeah.
I guess my thoughts on it, I'd like them to report it, because if there's a problem, then they're going to be involved with the repairing.
I'd like them to tie this back to the report that we got. I don't know which one it is. I have an idea. The one that was green, yellow, red.
No.
Is that this one?
No, that was the Sourcewell one. That's the one I did.
Okay, so we need to have a report for this. You just don't pay for something you don't know what you're getting.
yeah, and there's no report for this one
Right.
offered.
So would he sit on
He has
this?
stated that. And so my understanding of the work that was done was he says, back in July, this is high tech, we had Serpro on site to review the mold issue once the south mold was exposed. They were on site to review exposed mold and provide direction on locations to investigate the rest of the building. High tech removed selected areas of drywall and FRP to expose these locations. Serpro was back on site after this was opened to review the exposed mold in the walls, and they also provided a proposal to remove it. High tech actually did the mold removal and the wall demo. We did not have an air quality test done post-construction. If this is wanted, it would be an additional cost. So I guess at this point, because of the mold issues and the issues surrounding that, you should really
Probably
want
get
to
one.
have a test done, so you've got a baseline to say the problem's been fixed, and you can show the public that paid for this.
I don't
that the
disagree
problem's
with
been
that,
done.
but
Correct.
the question to me is, should we have required it at the onset of it? Or do we come back now after the fact and say, here's another thing we want? I don't know.
So we
I don't
don't
think it
have a
required it.
report for this over $9,000 of air sampling? We don't have a report?
That's
They're just-
correct. I asked for the report, and they said they didn't do one.
Well, I think for over $9,000, and they say they did it, I guess they should provide it before we pay it.
And I would certainly agree with providing backup for that $9,000 bill. I think if there's gonna be an additional report done in the future, though, I mean, that's where, well, do we have them do that out of their nickel, or, I mean, because they have done it. They have.
Well, that's really
but
up to you.
They should have some kind of receipt for it. I mean, they should have some backup.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah.
I asked for it and they said they didn't have,
It was going to be an additional cost,
Yep.
if I remember reading right.
that's correct.
So I'll make a motion, we don't pay this until we get
Yeah.
a document that substantiates what they did.
2 reports. One, what the results of that one was for the $9,000.
Right.
And I've asked for that report and they said they didn't do one.
How can they charge us?
The testing had to have something.
Those are the same questions I had.
Yeah,
So I'm just bringing this back to you. So I can push them a little harder if you'd like, say, here's what they did, but I think at a minimum, you should have a test with the report that you can say, we fixed the problem.
I agree. We need a report after construction to show that it's okay.
That's a good motion.
But then we should know what that's gonna cost. If we're
Absolutely.
paying for over $9,000 for a report we don't get, we better find out how much a report that we might get now, post.
Well, let's start with 2A. I don't think there's been a motion, has there?
There hasn't.
So let's go one at a time and go back to it, and then I have a suggestion on 2B, but on 2A, I think Mike recommended approval of that one. That's not the mold one, that's before that.
Those are the current amount due that you approved the change orders at the last meeting. So if you could get a motion for E2A to pay High Tech, pay application 11 from High Tech in the amount of $270,103.05.
So either make a motion or second it wherever we are in that process.
I think it's just a motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Motion and second, all in favor?
What?
Aye.
I have a question.
Oh,
I
I'm
have a
sorry.
question.
Sorry, Marcia.
So then we don't have any retainage at all, we're paying them completely, but we don't have the sampling report. Why are we doing that?
Well, we're not gonna pay them the 9,000 that they're requesting.
That's 2B.
Is that in that?
No.
No.
That's not in there, okay.
So we have a motion and a second for pay application number 11. All in favor?
Aye.
And then I think I have a suggested motion for
Opposed.
2B to explain after you're done. I think you're all saying the same thing. I think you should deny approval of 2B until there's more explanation, and if there's not been a report, you want a quote before you do it, but you want that done by somebody, but I think that's the motion. It's not
That's
just.
what I started,
Yeah.
That we deny this until they send us a report that ties back to this dollar figure. And part B would be to have them give us a quote to do testing, post-construction on the same area to make sure that we've got a document that says it's mold-free.
That's what I would recommend.
And I second that.
Okay, that's a motion and a second. The only comment I have to that is that we, as the city, could just go and hire a service master to come in and do a test.
Right.
Well, you're
We
just
can-
doing a
if we
quote,
get
though.
a high quote, we can decide that.
Yeah, you're only getting a quote. That's why I said get a quote first, like some couple of you said in different
And that
comments.
might be a good idea to get somebody that is totally unrelated to.
Yep.
We should have 2 quotes.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay. Blinds for the fire hall.
Tinting.
I'm not sure where this came from, but I'm sure Chip will tell us.
I received some quotes for blinds in the fire hall, for the offices and the, training room, just so we can shut the windows so people can't look in there. Kind of like, City Hall. Because all the blinds were removed when we had demolition.
In fact, an estimate for this amount is on item E2 of your packet. And when we started this, summarizing information like this, we allowed $2,700. And then you've got a little room left in the miscellaneous stuff that you could cover this.
So it's not tinting, it's actual blinds.
They're blinds like
Actual
this,
blinds.
just like these.
Yep, okay. Any questions? Anybody want to make a motion on that?
So move.
I'll second it.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. What's the next one?
Do you want to take the next one too, Chip?
Security companies?
So right now, the city has 2 different security. We are monitored by Midwest at the community center and Midwest here, And then I have
Birchdale.
Birchdale, which was purchased by Silent Night. And I'd like to, I'm gonna have a quote next week to switch over to Midwest. We're all in the same company. But once the building was almost complete in April, it was very hard and difficult to work with Silent Night, trying to get things taken care of because they were under contract with the remodel. And then when I needed some other things changed out, it took 2.5 months for them to reply to my email and phone calls. So I'm not having a good time with that company.
So all your wiring that you got in, everything's
Everything works,
acceptable, it'll
everything
just switch?
transfers. It all, actually, we might be able to use our old cards again that we used to have over there.
Yeah.
So it's just basically they have to switch out a module, and that's it. Monitoring
So
will be the same.
It's kind of too bad we don't have a dollar, just so we know what it is before we approve it.
Yeah,
but-
they told me they were gonna have it by today, and I talked to them today, and they said they won't have it, so.
And Mayor and Council, I can attest to this. I used to have Birchdale, which is now Silent Night, and it took about a month and a half to get someone up there to take a look at our equipment, which is why we went with Midwest now.
Yeah, well, I think they should all be the
That
same.
company sold recently. It used to be
Yes.
Jerry Gibbs, right?
Correct.
Now it's someplace out of St. Louis Park.
Yeah, so
they're in
you
the
get
cities now.
directed down to the cities.
Located down.
So I'll bring it to you next month.
Yeah, I just like to, I mean,
Yeah.
I think you should go ahead and do it, it'd just be
Right.
nice to know what it
Yeah.
is. Okay, that is supposed to be it for me, but I've got one other thing, and this is kind of an awkward thing, but for the people out there, this council cannot get together and talk about anything more than 2 council members, or it's a quorum. So I have to do what I'm gonna do in an open meeting. I can't do it any other way. And what I'm gonna address here is Chief Lee's article in the front page of the paper of June 22nd. And so I'm gonna read, I got a little written deal I wanna say about it, and then I just want your guys' opinion. Chief Lee's statement that the January 5th respectful workplace complaint was legitimate. That's a quote that he made in his article. The investigating officer, the county attorney, and 2 eyewitnesses that were present all stated that there was no wrongdoing. Pretty profound that the police chief, that wasn't present for the incident, makes a statement in the front page of the paper that the complaint was legitimate. I just have a really bad case of heartburn over that. Very disturbing to me and should be to all parties. So, you know, we've got this respectful workplace thing going on around here, and this comes out in the front page of the paper. This was discussed in a closed meeting, and the fact that the article came out before the council had time to report on their findings publicly is also very concerning to me. The only people present for that closed meeting were City Administrator Mike Linus, City Attorney, and the full council. And I really would like to know how Chief Lee found his information. How did you find out that, because I think your allegation was the council was gonna take no action.
I don't think I alleged that there was gonna be no action.
Oh,
I
you
said I
did.
think I felt that there was gonna be, I didn't have confidence in the process.
I'm gonna run through this timeline.
Okay.
Council met on May 10th at the regular meeting. There was a respectful workplace complaint on May 11th. Council met in closed session to discuss the issue on June 14th, which was the next meeting. Your withdrawal was on June 22nd in the Northland Press. Your withdrawals respectful workplace complaint. At the end of this meeting is the first opportunity that the city attorney has had to come and address our closed meeting. So it's really troubling to me how you withdrew based on the council was going to take no action on a meeting that has not been summarized yet.
I based my letter on the fact that you were involved in the meeting. And if you're the subject of the complaint and you're involved in the meeting, that to me is a conflict of interest. And so therefore, I didn't have any confidence in the process. Same as Mr. Kolsted's complaint, in that you and Ms. Siebert-Vols were involved and the subject of the complaint. That gives me reason to believe that I don't have confidence in the process and there is a conflict of interest.
Well, Marcia and I were present during the other one. I was involved in yours, but before the involvement started, I recused myself. I said, I cannot be involved in this. And the council and those two said, yes, we want your input. So that's how that happened. But just the fact, we talk about this respectful workplace we have here. And to put this in the front page of the paper, first of all, that legitimizes the first complaint that you were not present for. I just have a hard time. Do you guys have any opinion on that, or are we just gonna let it go? I just want to bring it up.
Dave, I'd let it be and move forward personally.
Okay.
It's time for us to move forward, David. Let's go easy.
Okay. Mr. Schrupp, do you have any comment for it?
I agree with him. I think there's been enough said, enough read. It's time to put things behind and move on. Or it's going to be this way for a while.
Okay, Marcia, do you want to add anything to it?
I guess I'm going to go along the line of closed session. What happens at closed session should not be discussed ever, only the summary. And my question, withdrawal of a complaint that the city council reacted on, that then becomes private data. So I think we need to have a little education on what the data privacy is, closed session, because things have not been right, because there should have not have been withdrawal, because we had already acted on it. Should have been private data. And I just think that maybe at the beginning of every closed session, you're going to have to remind the city council that they can't talk about what happens in session, and that only the summary is public data. And I guess that's where I'm at, is the procedure. It's got to be handled properly, because it's not being handled now.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I made very clear that I did not want to get any of my complaint involved. I did not let anyone know regarding what my complaints were, so I kept that private.
As far as the substance of your complaint?
As far as the substance.
Okay, well, this is not keeping it real private here, but okay. Whatever. Okay, well, I just wanted to vent on that a little bit because that was a little hard for me to accept, but we'll just move on. Next is the city administrator's report.
All right, the first item under my report is a request for approval to forward the TIF money we received from the county for Midwest Properties. The way this works is this is a pay-as-you-go tax increment financing project, and the developer is required to pay their property taxes, and then once we collect them, we remit 90% of what was collected back to the developer. That amount to remit is $5,995.28.
I move that we accept the TAF reimbursement for $6,661.42 as submitted by Michael Linus.
And could you add to that then payment to the developer for the amount
And payment
listed?
to the developer, $5,995.28.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, any other questions on it? All in favor?
Aye.
And just as an aside to that, on July 2nd, we got the balance of our second half property tax payment through June. And on our current taxes, we collected about 56% of the amount that we've levied for the current year. So what that means is the reason it's more than half is because a lot of smaller, lower value properties, oftentimes they pay the full year's taxes on the first settlement. And I'm guessing that the reason it's higher for two reasons is because most people here pay their taxes, like 99%. Our delinquencies are extremely low, and property transfers have probably caused that to go over 50%. Usually it's right on the button at 49, so 49 or 50. So that's good news. I'm going to ask TJ, I'm going to put this up on the overhead. Okay, this next item is just information for the council and those watching, is that on Friday, July 30th, between 10 to 2, here at City Hall, Crow Wing Soil and Water Conservation will be doing free nitrate testing of your water. So we'll put this out on our website so you can see it, but it's available to anyone who wants to have their water tested. You run your tap water for 5 to 10 minutes, collect it in a clean baggie, double bag, or a clean jar. Keep it cool, and they'll test your water for nitrates, free. That's July 30th. Item 3, at our last council meeting, the meeting prior to that, you'd asked for an update on the respectful workplace policy. If you remember at that time, we pulled that policy as a standalone out of the employee manual so that everybody knew about it. It has always been in there, but the issue we were having is people didn't know it existed or what they're being held accountable for. At our last meeting, I reported that we had sent out, I believe, 83 of these to council members, staff, fire department, commissions, boards, whatever. And we had 19 that were not returned. After a month, we got 4 of those back, so now we're down to 15. We got 5 back, we're at 15 that have not been returned. The last item is, now that we're back to live meetings, I see we've got a half a dozen people or so on Zoom. The question has come up, every city is asking this right now too. What do you want to do going forward with Zoom? I've had comments going, I can't stand it, I can't hear because people don't talk into the microphones, to my technology doesn't work, to why didn't we do this sooner? I love it, please continue. So you don't have to make any decisions now on it. There's been a lot of talk and chatter at the league on do they want to change the state law, or just how it's working. If you're listening to watching the paper, other communities around us are looking at considering the purchase of technology so they can do what we're doing today. We've learned a lot through this process. We've had some growing pains, and one of the things we found is we need to find a backup for TJ on this, or someone else to do it if he's not available that night, because we do a lot of meetings on Zoom. So food for thought. If you want to get your thoughts back to myself or the clerk, we can give you an update at our next meeting on your thoughts on what you want to do with that. All right?
What is the league saying on it at this time?
Well, they're going back to the rules that existed before the pandemic came, saying, this number of meetings. If you're going to have a remote meeting, if a commission member at the meeting is remote, they have to be in a public place so it can be open to the public. You can't be sitting in your garage or your office at home. You got to be in a public place where the public can know that there's a meeting, like a library or a government building or whatever. But you can still do remote meetings. So they've given it a lot of thought, but I haven't seen anything that's changed on it yet. So.
When you talk about being in a public place, you're talking about council or
Right. Yep. That's all I have unless you have questions for me. Before you go tonight, I do have we have a budget meeting coming up on the proposed budget revisions, coming up on July 21st. So I've got an update for you for that when you leave tonight. And then questions, concerns, let me know what your thoughts are as I pull the 2022 budget together. We've got some challenges we talked about with the right-of-ways and some other things too. So get those to me.
Okay, planning and zoning, John, what do you have?
Good evening. I have a recommendation from the Planning Commission Board of Adjustment that came out of our last meeting on June 25th to begin a 30-day comment period on the following changes to or proposed changes to the land use ordinance. Based on our meetings that we had and discussion that involved some citizens and then talking with the Planning Commission, we came up with some changes. The first one would be to add accessory structures greater than 2,500 square feet and having it require a conditional use permit in all residential districts. So even if you have a 5 acre plus piece of property, you have the room to build it on there, you need a conditional use permit. It allows you to maybe, the commission to add some structural setbacks or screening or something like that that would, so you're not affecting the neighbors as greatly. We also talked about removing completely the conditional use permit requirement for commercial storage buildings in residential, which would make it so you're not allowed to rent your pole building space out to anyone to use. If it's in a residential district, it's relegated then to commercial only. We also talked about adding in a definition for event center, and that came about because of the different wedding venues that are popping up here and there, and people using their garages to house a reception for a couple hundred people, and the parking and everything else that goes along with it. So we're going to define what an event center is. We're going to put in requirements for a conditional use permit, and we're also going to restrict the parking and making sure that they have enough and they're not using all of the parking spots along the road. They have to account for it. And if they have additional outdoor areas where they provide entertainment or whatever beyond the capacity of what is determined for their center that they've created, they have to accommodate the parking for that also. And hopefully it will alleviate some of the congestion in these residential crowded areas where this is going on now. A couple big things that we talked about were accessory structures and changing building height requirements, and for the accessory structures. So if you're on a less than 2 acre piece of property, you're restricted still to 1,200 square feet of building space, but your building height would be, originally we said 10, but that's not realistic. You can't get a 10-foot garage door on a 10-foot wall, so we bumped it up to 12. What you would have to consider on that one is we also allow people to have guest quarters. And if you're limiting the wall height to 12 feet and they want to come in and put guest quarters above their garage, we're going to see a lot of variances. So that would just be my caution on that one. And this goes out to public and everybody gets to comment on it. So really that's it. And then the big one was anything bigger in residential, bigger than 2,500 square feet would require a conditional use permit. You have all the specific changes. The last item in that, or the last page of G1A is the proposed timeline. And what we would be looking at is putting it out here in the next week or so for public comment. We would leave it out there until the end of August, collect all the comments that we receive, kind of analyze what's there, bring it back to the Planning Commission in our September meeting, where we would hold a public hearing. And depending on what happens with that public hearing, then we would bring it forward in October to the City Council meeting. And then potentially, if you guys approve it, it would be published about 10 days after that October 11th meeting. So what we're asking today is a motion for us to put it out for public comment. Each of you, I'll send it directly to you again if you want it, and we'll accept your comments also in this whole process. I've talked with a few of you about different things. And then it gives the public an opportunity to weigh in on what these changes are and potentially any others that might pop up.
I make a motion that we allow planning and zoning to put out the proposed revisions to the City of Cross Lake Land Use Ordinance out for public comment.
Okay, any other discussion on it? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Public safety, who's gonna do that? Do I?
This, yes, thanks.
Oh, yeah.
I think last council meeting, we talked about becoming a heart-safe community, and the Public Safety Committee talked about it a little bit. Do you all remember that?
Yep.
It was in your, okay, I just want to make sure I wasn't.
I just wanted you to read that.
Oh, I think you need to read this. This is your resolution, not mine.
All right, I tried.
If you want any more information about what we're trying to do here,
Put the
Stephanie.
resolution on the, people can look at it.
How's that? Good?
Resolution in support of becoming a heart-safe community. Whereas sudden cardiac arrest is the leading cause of death in the United States, killing more than 1,000 people per day across the wide age spectrum, including youth. Whereas automated external defibrillations and cardiopulmonary resuscitation given within the first 2 minutes equal an 85% survival rate. Whereas proper training and awareness will save lives. Stephanie Newman, Kevin Lee of North Memorial, and members of the Cross Lake Fire Department will help the city to complete the steps to be recognized as a heart-safe community by the Minnesota Department of Health. Now therefore be it resolved that the Cross Lake City Council is in full support of the city of Cross Lake becoming a heart-safe community, and by adoption of this resolution, direct staff to proceed for designation. So do we have a motion for that, or are there any other questions or comments about it?
I move that we make Cross Lake a heart-safe community and start the process.
Second. Okay, motion, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion carries again. Stephanie, thank you for helping out with that.
Kind of confused where I'm supposed to be, sitting down there or up here, not sure which. A couple different things from the police department. Most of you know Adam Lane gave me his resignation letter last Friday, or maybe it was Thursday. He is taking a position with Crow Wing County Sheriff's Office. His last day will be July 17th with Cross Lake. Wish him the best, and sad to see him go. We're going to need a motion to accept the resignation.
I'll second it.
Have a question, Chief. Any info on why Adam's leaving? He's only been here a year and a half.
I asked him the same thing, and what came down to was money and opportunity. The Public Safety Committee and we've discussed how we can change that around. We've lost 2 officers in the last 3 years to different jobs. One went on to be an HVAC employee and was making twice as much money as he was making as a police officer, and Adam with the sheriff's office. We got to try to figure out how we can become a place to stay rather than a place to train officers. And like I said, we've discussed things at the Public Safety Committee, but it's going to come down to what I can provide as far as opportunities if they want to be a part of the attack team, if they want to be part of the bomb team, the Crow Wing County, we can have that happen. And it's going to be council support if they're going to do that. The other thing is benefits and wages.
Sounds like salary too, yeah. So we need to pay attention to that.
Yep. We've got
expensive.
everything that we need here as far as, we've got some of the best equipment that money can buy right now. And we've had very generous people donate great equipment to us. So as far as that's concerned, we're at the top.
It's expensive to be a training center for other people. Thank you.
Yeah, I would probably guess we've got $20,000 invested into training a new officer. So, I mean, it's a commitment on our part.
So do we have a motion and a second? Is that where that stopped? Okay, any other questions, comments? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you. Secondly, I would request permission to hire Adam Casanova as a part-time officer. Adam has been trained over at Pequot Lakes Police Department. He's working part-time there right now. He's got a good background. He's ridden multiple times with a few of our officers, and they all really like the way he works. I know that we did discuss this at the Public Safety Committee meeting, and when council sets out what the Public Safety Committee is supposed to do, then, you know, we'll start following that a little bit more, promotions, employment, whatever it might be. But being I had a short notice on this, and I was looking at, I've actually interviewed a few people for jobs, and Adam kind of came out at the top. Not to say that the others aren't just as good, and I may not be coming to you to hire them also here. But Adam, train him for a couple weeks with a couple of the guys after we do the background investigation, and contingent, this would be offering him a job contingent on passing everything and hopefully starting him with a couple weeks, and he will backfill for a couple months, probably 36, you know, between 30 and 40 hours a week, backfill the officer lanes shifts. And that way we're using part-time money, which we haven't used much of this year, and we'll see some savings there for a couple months while we train him in and decide what we want to do in a couple months.
I move you go ahead with hiring and get them on what avenue so that we can keep coverage.
Contingent.
This is summer. Can't afford not to be without.
I second that.
Okay, motion second. Any other discussion on it? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I have 3 items for you tonight. I'll start with item 3A. You can kind of look through the packet there. As shown in the attached survey and picture, there is a shed located on the public right-of-way. A letter was sent to the property owners who just purchased that land adjacent to the right-of-way back just before February 19th. There was nothing back after that letter, so it is my recommendation to have the city, could you switch that over for me, John? The city attorney write up a legal document asking the property owners to remove that shed from the right-of-way, and if they fail to remove that shed, I believe I have it in there, by a certain date, that we hire a company to remove that and then bill the property owners.
Which structure there are you talking about?
Right here.
That one there, okay.
And then you can see it on the,
Yep. No, that's fine.
You saying that the shed was fully placed there, though?
no, there was one where I believe John was over there looking at the property for a different application, and then he just came across the shed, noticed that it was on the right-of-way. And this reiterates our need to locate and come up with some sort of a database, because we could address all these issues all at once instead of coming up to, separate meetings and addressing these. You can see the sheds right.
Is this the right way down to the lake, or is this?
That is correct.
It is.
It is, yes.
I would rather that you direct the attorney to write a letter for him to get it out of there by a certain date, or we'll impose the
That's the
daily
recommendation.
fine to it. I don't think we
Okay.
should be hiring somebody to move that thing. Just impose that fine and it'll be out of there before too long. That's my thought. You don't know what's in that shed, and somebody goes, starts dragging it, and all of a sudden you're gonna be,
I would probably be more generic in my letter anyway, just give them a deadline and say we'll take further legal action. If they ignore us, we'll probably come seek more direction from council.
I don't know, do you need a motion for that or just
Yeah,
direction?
yes, I mean, that's how I would be fairly, I wouldn't be that specific in what remedy we're gonna pick. I would give them a deadline.
I don't understand that. After that deadline, that daily penalty is imposed.
Well, we have to, that's a different note. Well, we could just start, I guess, maybe I didn't understand your remedy, or your
Well, it's just gonna-
motion.
It's gonna be 2 months later, why not? just-
Well, then that's a little bit differently drafted letter. We could make it, according to our administrative fine ordinance,
Yeah.
make this the first notice, if you want me to go there. I didn't, I think you've heard staff has already given a letter and they ignored it, so I think it'd be more aggressive, but that might be the right choice. To just start the administrative fine process, not by fining today, but starting the notice period so that we can use that ordinance right away, not wait until August 9th and then start it. Is that what I think that's what the mayor asked for. Okay, which I can do.
So is that enough of a motion for you? Okay.
Second.
Any other discussion on it? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
All right, item 3B here, I have a park dedication recommendation. The Park and Library Commission met on June 23rd, in which they discussed the WLJ property subdivision, and the recommendation came out of that meeting to accept cash in lieu of land, and that would be $1,500 for park dedication.
Motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to accept the $100 park dedication.
Second.
Okay, motion to second, all in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you. Item 3C, we have another park dedication recommendation. Again, the Park and Library Commission met on June 23rd, in which they discussed the Hagelin subdivision, and this would be to accept cash in lieu of land for $16,500 in park dedication revenue.
I'll make a motion to accept the $16,500 park dedication.
I second it.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. That's all I have, unless you guys have anything for me.
Thank you, TJ.
Thanks.
Good evening, council.
Good evening, Ted.
Just right around the corner here from City Hall, we have a property that hasn't hooked up, and it was the intent that they would be hooked up by a year from the time we completed the project. On the back of this, you see her letter that she wrote to us. Okay? And then the front of it is a recommendation from the Public Works Commission. A motion was made by Tom Swenson and seconded by Tim Burke to recommend that the city council require the property owner at 36868 Brook Street hook up to the municipal sewer by 11/14 of 2023 based on the fact that their septic system is 9 years old and the usage fee be billed after 11/14 of 2023. All were in favor of that.
I move that we continue, we keep that in effect and we don't change our policy. So by 2023, we hook up.
I'll second that motion. You're saying the same motion that Public Works gave us, same stated motion.
Yeah, okay. Any other question on that? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Do you want to talk to any of these, Phil, or? Why don't you come forward with this?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, many of you were at the Public Works meeting last week. We talked about assessments associated with CSAH 66 of the sanitary sewer. Public Works Committee came up with, I guess, the guidance that you see before you in the packet. I think that whether it's single-family residential or commercial, we kind of hit the middle of the appraised benefit that was identified during the process. To point out that there was a desire to spread the assessment over 20 years to provide a benefit to property owners to reduce their annual cost on that. And then also to follow the same rule, we have a lot of septic systems. Some have life, some have exceeded what we consider to be the identified date of 10 years. So we'd like to adopt that policy as well, that a septic system that is 10 years old, once it reaches that point, the property owner has 1 year to connect to the city sanitary sewer system. That provides kind of a benefit to those people that still have life in their system, but also facilitates getting properties hooked up to the system. I think the final question was the large lots and how to handle those. Again, both of the large lots that we're considering, it's actually 4 parcels. They are zoned commercial. One is used residential. The other one is a church. So, you know, there were options that were laid out for the parcel furthest to the north near Moonlight Bay Restaurant. Was talk about assessing the northern parcel and not assessing or completely deferring the southerly parcel. That reason being at only 33 feet front CSAH 66. The rest of it fronts the street behind Ox Lake Landing Road. The other one is again the church. There's the northern parcel's developed, and the southerly parcel is parking lot with undeveloped behind. So how you want to proceed with that? There was discussion, at least that I heard, about assessing the commercial rate at the church to the northern parcel and assessing only a portion of the southern parcel. Someone threw out 400 feet. That's about 40% of the lot depth. So, and then deferring the rest. We don't have a defined exactly how you want to handle it, but...
But the deferment would be through stubbing an 8-inch pipe off that would service the back end and give us the ability to pick it up in the event something happens.
The idea being we don't know how that will develop. We're kind of looking at the crystal ball use of what it could be, zone commercial, and to put a bigger pipe there to allow that to develop further. So, yeah.
What if we consider developed and undeveloped in our calculations? If you had half your lot, half your parcel was developed, and the parking lot, or what is not developed there?
Well, looking at that particular lot, the southern church parcel, the parking lot is about that 400-foot mark, and then behind is everything else that I would call green space.
I would recommend the state statute allows deferment for undeveloped parcels. There's some discretion of the council and commissions what undeveloped means is partly what you're asking right now, I think. But then when it comes, that's the state statute, that's generic, or broadly based. But then in the actual assessment notices and assessment roll, we would want to be very specific when what gets filed with the county on what triggers it not being deferred anymore. What is development? We would have to define that better by the time of the assessment hearing. And
So
give
there's
them,
no definition in the state statutes of development?
there's some guidance, but you can be more specific based on the actual site.
Does that help you?
Well, he still needs the direction from you guys, but we'll figure it out. If we got to get to a hearing first, but.
Right, and I think that's the point, is that the 2 large lots, I like the idea of you trying to make everything cookie cutter, but I think you have some situations where you just have to handle them. And I think that's my opinion of these large lots. You have to handle them.
Are you gonna have dollar signs by all these parcels for the meeting?
So what I'd like to do is offer that we, with your direction, acceptance of this approach that was laid out by the Public Works Committee, we update the feasibility report based on this. Then the updated feasibility report comes with you with a mock assessment that's been updated based on this. A uniform residential, uniform commercial, and then we can take a stab at the large lot. And then that precipitates then an improvement hearing, which I'd like you to consider for September. So our step is get an updated report to you in August, be prepared to schedule an improvement hearing in September, so that you at that point will firmly determine whether you're going to proceed and have us bid this in January and construct next year, or whether something else is uncovered and you decide it needs to be delayed.
So your mock assessment will have that 400 feet back and it'll be in there?
We can
So
do that.
everything will be covered
We can do
in that
400 feet on one, and
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the recommendation from the Public Works Committee based on what we received from them. I don't know if you want me to read them all, or?
I don't.
Yeah.
I think you can say as set forth in the
Memo.
As set
on the
forth,
memo,
the
yeah.
Public Works recommendation.
No, second.
And I'd just like to make a comment that this isn't something that the Public Works Committee and the council put together in the last 2 weeks. This has been going on for
years.
And last December, they kind of came up with a lot of these milestones that are on here in these figures. And this extension has a grant that goes with it for runoff water that's $315,000.
Correct.
And the grant's going to expire at the end of '22.
Correct.
And if we don't get our act together, we're not going to get the grant. So that's why we're charging ahead with this. So, sorry, that's a lot of wind. But.
Okay, so do we vote on that? Or do we just, yeah, did we vote?
No.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Phil.
Thank you, council. That is greatly appreciated. Been a lot of work by a lot of people. The last one is on the Hillcrest Beach right away. A motion was made by Gordy Wagner and seconded by Tim Berg to recommend that the council discuss the possibility of building the stairs at the Hillcrest Beach right away, as the stairs that were there were removed by adjacent landowner. The commissioners felt strong that we don't want to let something die, and we look at, is there something we can do? I know there's some zoning issues we have that we have to address, but is there something we can do? That's what they're saying. So.
Thanks, Ted. I'm going to pick it up a little bit from there. Cindy Gibbs has been to a lot of meetings. She's the user of the Hillcrest Beach deal. She has got a lot of pictures as recently as 2019, I believe. 2016 with the stairs on it and the kids using it and blah, you know, on and on and on. So the idea here is now the stairs are gone. Do you want to come up and, I don't know, TJ, do you have some pictures or something, or how much do you want to get into this?
I can. Cindy Gibbs, I'm at 1338 Whitefish Avenue. As I recall, it was the conversation that Gordon and Tim Berg had at the last meeting was that they, excuse me, that they felt that Mr. Varley removed the stairway, and that obviously is on city property, and that when you remove something from city property without city permission, you would be responsible for that. So before I get into that, I do want to bring up the fact that back on June 7th, when we had the meeting at the Special Joint Council and Public Works Committee, there was a quote that I was quoted in making that the owner of Lot 13 installed the stairway. with the other neighbors. It was not, I never said, somehow that got misinterpreted, and I just want to clarify for the record that it was not the owner of Lot 13 that installed those stairways, that stairway, back in the 1950s. It was Walquist, Martin, and Mr. Freeman on those from those inlet properties.
So Shar, I think she's asking you to.
I'll relook at the video, but.
Yeah, I would never say that. So anyways, so I have some pictures here that I would like to show you. Mr. Berg asked if I had any pictures that showed aerial views. Now, this picture, if we can, this is from the county website, and I know it's a little hard to see the date, but I actually have one on my phone, if you guys, because this was kind of hard to see. I'm sorry, that it states that it was May 6th of 2016. This was down at the bottom, it shows that it's 216. This is Mr. Varley's property, the cabin next to it, and as you see right here, which is a little glare, I don't know how to get that glare out of there, but right here is where the public access is, right there. As you can see in 2016, as of May, that was still there. So that is one little bit of information I wanted to point out. On February 23rd, 2021, Abear Pequot Sand and Gravel dumped a boatload, many truckloads of boulders down the bluff on Lot 13 and Hillcrest Beach access. I was told that it wasn't dumped on the access. It was only dumped on his property. This is a picture from Abear's Facebook page, them telling that they were rocking the shoreline today. And down here, I don't know if I need to zoom in on that, do I? Kind of a rookie at this here, you guys, so cut me some slack. Okay, it says it's February 23rd right there, 2021, and that was at 11:20 on that day. Now that's only one of the pictures. This is actually a picture of the top of the bluff. This tree right here, I'll show you other pictures that show that stairway is right next to that, was right there. And so we're over about the width of a stairway plus about 7 or 8 inches this way. That is part of the Hillcrest Beach access. The rest of all this over here is lot 13. And I would like to show you, that's a little better picture. How do we get this glare out of here?
I think we can see it, Cindy.
Okay, it's just kind of annoying. Okay, thank you, perfect. Okay, so there's another shot of that. You can see that there was plenty of rock that was dropped down, and they used all the rock that they dumped down there was to do the property for Mr. Varley here, which is adjacent to the access. You can actually see the access right here. That is where the public access is, and that lot 13. So that was done also on the 23rd. This is another picture that shows that it was Pequot gravel, so that you don't think I just grabbed these pictures off somewhere. But it was actually on Facebook where they had posted it. So that was
So
evidence.
Cindy, wait a minute, I feel like Judge Judy here, but can you put that last picture back up there?
This one here?
No, the one before that.
This one here?
Yep. Now
Okay.
that's the riprap that was done in front of Varley's house.
Yes.
And then you indicated that's the stairs in the background.
Well, it's not the stairs, it's, can I zoom in?
It's dirt.
It's just the dirt over
Oh, I see, okay. I
right
thought
here
that looked
as
like
it comes
the
down the
stairs.
hill.
I
It
was
looks
gonna
like
ask-
stairs, but that's the actual dirt.
Okay.
And the closest to this side is where the access actually is also. Okay, so, let's see. With that riprap, that's 260 feet of shoreline from the edge of his property across the whole 20 feet of the access, plus the 60 foot of lot 13. On March 5th, 2021, You guys, some of the committee and some of those guys, you guys went out there to do a visit on there to check it out, to see what they did. Then you noticed and discovered that he had put across the whole 20 feet. And you asked him to remove it, which you did. And there's still some boulders, and if you need to go take another look at it, that are still on the bluff area on the one side, about 5 feet. This is the bluff. Okay, so you got that. I also wanted to point out on these pictures, it was stated at another meeting that the company used mats and put it down to prevent that erosion. There was no mats on this. You can obviously see that. So that was kind of like, I think, a violation in itself, that was allowed to be done. So the matting there, we can see that wasn't done. And then what else I would like to show you is now this is what it looks like. This was taken on June 9th of 2021. You can see that on the edge of it right there, right here, let's zoom out on that. Right there, this is where they put the matting of the seed down to reseed. He did not put any mat seeding down on the access where he used the access to put the rocks down. This is a little better drawing or picture of it that now shows how you can see, I might have went a little too much, but that is, you can see really how the grass is growing and see the matting on the front due to the sun and all our drought that we had, that didn't grow. But being in the shade, that did. But he did not do anything to restore the access property where he dumped the rocks. This is also at the top. That's this marker right here. Let's go back out. This is crazy. This is the top of the survey marker that marks the edge of the access, and this is over towards his property, which is now starting to grow back in. You can see in this picture that is the marker right there over to here. Okay, so, and again, this is like the finished product right there. Okay, of his property and how much nicer it looks there, which is perfect, which is wonderful. So what I have here is I also wanted to show you, wanted to see pictures from history back. So what I have here, and I'm trying to keep them in order. So this one here, this is from 1970, right here. This is a picture of Paul Miller, who's in the cabin of John Keller next door that was discussed prior to. Myself, my dad, were out in front of our cabin, which is now Mr. Varley's property. And as you can see right in here, that is the public access Hillcrest Beach where the stairway and the dock was. This is in 1970. This is in 1978, and I know some people wanted to laugh at this when I presented it last time, but it is the actual property. This being Varley's property where his house is now, the cabin that he has, the stairway down. This is the little cabin with the stairway that was there no longer with the old pontoon that sat there for years. Right here, this redwood right here, that is the access, the stairway with the whole constructed stairway that was there. This was in 1978. So it goes back that far. You will see also that, this does coincide with this property right here when you look at where the stairway is here, based on the number of docks and things that are in it right there. Okay? So just a little more history here. So what I have here is, this is another picture. I'm going to get that out of there, sorry. This is another picture. This one here come from 2003. This was where the access stairway was. This was lot 13 where they had put their dock out. This was the previous owners. And as you can see here, this is the stairway that went down. This here was in 6/12 of 05. Here, the same stairway. This part is new because this part was destroyed by the ice, so they had to build new ones. So we built new ones there so that could be folded back up. Again, the dock out on lot 13. And this is the picture from the top of the stairs, right where, and you kind of see that little crooked tree that I pointed out before there. Top of the stairs, and to the left of the stairs, lot 13 with the dock there. This again is a picture from 2013 that was taken from the angle of lot 13. You can see how much grass was there, how green it was, no erosion, nothing there. This is the stairway that you see here, again with the little tree that was there. That's kind of a landmark. I have another picture that's taken from that, kind of from the angle of standing at the access. Here's the access here with the stairway. This is the tree, lot 13. This was done in 2005. So here's a picture from 2016, October. This is the top of it, just like this green one was here. This is in the fall. This is the access there. The property, the access goes way over to here to approximately right here, I believe, as it's marked now. And that is the birch tree, the birch clump that was there, and the small, which you can hardly see that little tree.
Okay, Cindy, let's discuss this a little bit.
Okay.
So you're saying that you've used it, it's always been there.
Yep.
I think Mr. Varley and his council is gonna come up and say that it hasn't been there and it wasn't on that lot. This thing really feels like it needs to go to court.
Can I
Not
give
that I
you-
want it to.
Right.
Not that I want it to, but I
I
mean,
have an
it's
email
just-
that I would like to, I can give you all copies.
Okay.
This here is an
I
email.
feel like it's in court, actually.
It kind of does. This is an email I received from Tom Berry, which is one of the three owners, brother of Don Berry, that Mr. Bradley has had a conversation with. And he emailed me this because there was questions in regard to if the stairs was on lot 13 or if they were on the access. And can everybody see that? You can see that it says, "To whom it may concern," that would be you guys, "in question that there has been a set of stairs on the said property, lot 13, block 30, Manhattan Beach, 2nd edition." The answer is, no, the stairs were never on the public access. He said, no, the stairs were always on the public access named Hillcrest, next to the said lot. We sold the lot to Leo Varley June of 2017. And I assure you that the set of stairs in question were never on that property. This is the only person now that can tell you, other than all the pictures that I have shown you, because it's been removed, which Mr. Varley and his attorney both have concurred that he did remove that stairway. My question or my request that I have is, the rest of us that are on those lots, we believe that removing city property holds some form of absolute responsibility. Mr. Varley admitted this, removing the stairs, and did so without the city permission from city property. And when he bought lot 13, he was made very aware of the fact that that stairway was there and it was on the access by the people that he bought it from, the Berries. So again, I would like to thank Mr. Gordon and Mr. Berg for making the motion to have something replaced. The request was, that I recall that they made, was that they asked Mr. Varley to be responsible and pay to replace this stairway. He should be responsible for his actions, and he should. I thank you. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, let's see what the council says about it. What do you guys think about that story? I think that's the first time you've heard it, probably? Martha, Aaron? I've heard it 3-4 times, so.
I'm sure. But you didn't always see the pictures.
Gets more compelling all the time, I will say that.
It's the truth, that's why.
The way that I look at things like this is you put the shoe on the other foot. And I'm thinking that if I was living across the street using that access, World War III would have started long ago. You know, I feel like you guys had something taken away from you.
We did.
And
We
I feel
absolutely
like
did.
there's kind of compelling proof that that's true.
The pictures, yep.
In the past meetings, we were accused of going up and down that hillside, okay? We actually witnessed 2 deer and a fox going down that when we were over on the edge of it, back from it. When the property was put for sale, Lot 13, a few weeks ago, there were several people that went down that access. Unsafe because there's no stairs, to look at the property from the front. And that, of course, caused a little bit more of the erosion. I also want to bring, and I didn't get a copy of it, I didn't print it out, I do have it. Wade Miller from the DNR, when I talked to him, he made a recommendation to the public, the planning and zoning, Mr. Kolstad. He talked to him, he emailed him, I think he emailed you, that he recommended that the city allows the people to have those stairs put back in there, and that they use the access as they did before. Wade's numbers, public information, or I can have it if you'd like it. He said anybody could call and ask that, but he did email that and contact John Kolstad.
Did you receive that, John?
I believe, yes, I did. It was more in regards to the erosion issues that were happening up and down the hill. It was either preclude people from going up and down or maybe think about replacing a stairway.
Okay, so you had a stairs, you used it for lots of years, you grew up there, your kids, your grandkids grew up there. Now the stairs are gone. Now the city's position on this is that if there is a stair to go back in, the city has got to pay for that stair. And we've got to insure and we've got to take the liability on. Is that not true, John?
We can ask Brad, but I believe that's true. It's our property and we'd have to maintain it unless somebody gets a use agreement from the city to do it themselves.
So I'd like your opinion on that, Brad.
Well, yeah, it's city, we've not related to this property, but it's city property. Think of it as a city park.
The city owns that property.
The city owns it.
That is not the same as
It's
an
not the same, we don't,
association.
well, it's not fee title city like a city park might be, I suppose. But it was dedicated to the public, and the law is very clear that the person responsible for maintaining a dedicated right-of-way in the city of Cross Lake is the city council. So it's not, so back in the day, people might have put stairs in, and I'm not blaming anybody or criticizing, it's just, that's just as unsafe probably as a slippery hillside. We wouldn't allow, it's not the 70s anymore. We have ADA rules, we have, building code, it's public property, or at least publicly supervised property. So it's not as simple as put the old 30-year-old stairs back in, or that if we knew they were there, I don't think we did, it sounds like, or I don't know what the past staff would have known, but it would have been our responsibility to make sure that they were safe. We shouldn't allow people to have private stairs and just look the other way.
Okay, but the stairs have been in there since 1950.
Well, it sounds like they were.
1940?
Yeah.
I don't know. So
But
there
stairs
really
need-
hasn't been a rule that changed that requires it to do us now. It's just we ignored it before and now we're aware of it.
Well, it's just like, yes, if we knew there's a bridge in town that's 50 years old, that's never been inspected before, I would hope you'd all think, well, that's probably crazy. We better have a city engineer look at this thing. It's exactly the same.
I don't think it's any different than the shed that you just said needs to be removed off the right-of-way.
No, John, there's a lot of difference. That shed is on a public right-of-way.
They've been
that's
using it
privately
for
owned.
years.
Well, sure, but it's the neighbor. It's an encroachment. This was on a dedicated area.
That's
for the back lot.
that's what the stairs would have been, an encroachment.
No, because the dedication.
Well, it was used by the public, other than a private person, so that part's different, but
No, it's by the public.
Yeah.
And actually the dedicated public. I think the design of the plat was to allow the back people access to the lake.
Well, that's clearly how it was used. Who knows what the plan
I don't
was,
think
but.
they went that far.
Yeah, but point is if we know of a public, not a public improvement, any improvement, if it's gonna be used by the public, we have some kind of duty to make sure it's safe. That doesn't mean don't do it. I'm just saying, we can't let people build stairs and look the other way.
But you mentioned ADA, which then chills up my,
Well, I'm not an engineer. I have no idea what
I don't know.
the design would be or what we need to do or how expensive it would be, but.
Can I just add into that with the ADA? There's a lot of accesses all around throughout the state that are not handicap accessible. It is clearly stated at the access that they are not handicap accessible. And that's true, it does. But I believe that with this access, if we make proper signage, which I personally will pay for the signage, as long as I don't have to run it through your city budget stuff, because I think they're overspending on some of that stuff, and I could probably get the signs done by somebody I know. So anyways, I believe that if we put a sign that says no motor vehicle beyond this point, and put it out at some
I'm
point.
just trying to figure out how they do it up in the Boundary Waters canoe area.
Exactly. I mean, everybody just knows it. They read it in a book. They read it in the, I would imagine, the set of criterias in the Boundary Waters. And then at the top of the thing, steps, put another sign that you are responsible if you go past this, beyond this point, and the city of Cross Lake is not responsible for it. I'm pretty sure that it can be worked out with that, and there wouldn't be any problems. That stairway was there from the 50s to the 2019 or 20s when he removed it, and there hasn't been an incident. Nobody brought any claims to the city. I just think that it can be a workable thing. Just want to just remind you that if I was to go onto the city property, into the park, and take a bench and put it in my truck after unbolting it or however, that would be considered theft on my part. You guys don't know where it is. There's no proof that it was there other than somebody says it was. I would be responsible for replacing that or returning that bench. And that's what I'm
Okay, city.
making responsible
I'm
for.
getting wore out. I think
Okay.
everybody's got a lot of information here.
Yes.
And let's put it to the board here. Where do you want to go with this?
let's get a cost.
Could Mr. Varley be heard?
Sure, I guess, yeah, yeah. Come on up, Joe.
I'm Joe Christensen. I'm Mr. Varley's attorney. This went to the Public Works Committee, and it was determined, all these things were determined, that you've got basically a lot of hearsay discussion. You don't have a survey. We don't have any evidence where that stairway was. It sounds like it was in the 20-foot right-of-way. Do we know where it was in the 20-foot right-of-way? Did it encroach either way? Do we know that? No, we don't. And then you have the Public Works Committee meet last Tuesday to discuss this specific item with no notification whatsoever to Mr. Varley, the neighbor. He owns the adjoining property. No notification at all. And when Mr. Varley made his first application to vacate this right-of-way, that you directed that either that you deny it or that he withdraw it, so he withdrew it. Because, why? Why did that happen? Do you remember? The neighboring property owner didn't have notice. We had to go back through the whole thing for what? Notice. Okay. So then we go through the whole thing for notice, and we come back, and then Mr. Varley withdrew it again when it was clear there was no support to vacate the right-of-way or to move it to the side of his property. He was even asking just to move it over. But the neighbor said, I'd rather not have it there, and so there was no support for moving it to one side. So Mr. Varley withdraws it. So now we have this whole other chain of events occurring through the city, taking action on this with absolutely no notice whatsoever to Mr. Varley. So I'm here to tell you tonight that we object to what you're doing. I reserve the right to object later for lack of notice. And you have, do you have this on? You have this letter This letter dated June 1st, 2016, this letter was sent by Mr. Person, your city attorney, and it was sent to all adjoining property owners that own land on these rights-of-ways. And it's telling them to get the improvements off the right-of-way. That's what it's telling them to do.
Okay, can I?
And let me finish. You have a city ordinance, Ordinance 3236, that prohibits the construction of private improvements on a public right-of-way. And you have another thing with right-of-way. You don't accrue private rights in right-of-ways. You can't go out and encroach on your street right-of-way and do that for a long enough period of time. Gee, I had that shed in the right-of-way in the 1950s, and my family, we have all these wonderful memories around the shed in the city right-of-way. We want to keep it there. You can't do that. That's not how it works. You can't accrue private rights in public rights-of-way. These stairs, no matter what the story is, if they were either in the right-of-way or adjoining the right-of-way or partially in or out or whatever, they were constructed without any authority at all, no legal authority at all. If they were on the public right-of-way, there was no accrual of any private rights. And so what Mrs. Gibbs is asking for is basically for the city to create a controlled access lot here. And that's prohibited by your ordinance. Your ordinance prohibits a lake access to serve off-lake lots. And so basically she's asking you to do an end run around your controlled access right-of-way lot. Or it's not controlled access right-of-way, but controlled access lots. She's asking you to basically do an end run. And so now where are you? Now you're at, well, do we force a private property owner to construct improvements on public property? What's the authority for that? I think it's pretty slim. So then what? Now the city's going to build this? So are you going to build these on all the rights of way in the city? Because if you're going to do it here, the next Cindy Gibbs is going to come in and say, you know, we were using the one over there. You better build one for us there too. And you know, I want to use it in the winter. You better maintain it so I can get down there and ice fish.
Okay, Joe. Okay.
So
Point taken. The trouble with this that's different than most of the other ones is there was a stairs there and now it's gone.
Yeah.
The letter went out for people to take their private stuff off of public roads. The intent was not to just go around and randomly take things off.
it wasn't random. He owned the property on both sides of the right-of-way.
And the notice was to get your shed off of the right-of-way. It wasn't, if it wasn't one of the neighbors' thing, what would they have the interest of taking it off of a public right-of-way?
You're splitting hairs. He's the neighboring
No,
property
you're splitting
owner,
hairs.
and he thought
It's
that
gotta
they
go to
were,
court.
well, he got a letter from the city saying to take the private improvements off the public right-of-way. And he owned property on one side of it when he got the letter, and within a year he owned the property on the other side.
I would just love to hear your argument to this thing. If you lived across the street, as long as you've been up here, and your kids had been down using that access for many years, and somebody came and took it off, I'd love to hear your argument on that.
Well, I guess I would acknowledge the fact that I didn't own it, that it was public property, that there were private improvements constructed on public property with absolutely no authority whatsoever, and I had no vested rights in it. Okay. That's what I'd acknowledge. And you know what? And then I'd go one more, and I'd use the great other public accesses that this city has already developed all over the city that are perfectly good and usable. What are people going to do here? I mean, what's the next step? So now your city's going to build stairs? Now what? Dock? Boats? What? 20 feet in width. 20 feet in width.
Point well taken. Thank you.
That's what you got here.
Yep.
And
Tough one. It's too bad that the stairs disappeared.
well,
So
he did
I
it
don't-
rightfully.
I don't know what we can do. There's a wrong here, but I don't know how to correct it. Brad, can you give us any guidance?
Well, I see different things, and there's different remedies here. I mean, again, if whoever pays for it, we can argue about that, but if you want city stairs there, they're public stairs, and they need to be built to public specs with city engineers, and I'm not saying do it or don't do it, but we can't put We can't have some neighbors do it, at least intentionally. The fact that it happened back in the day, we can't control that. But now that it's gone, which we didn't authorize or do, you can't just, it's not that simple to put the old stairs back. There might be remedies for ripping up and, you know, having all the boulders go down the right of way and causing the erosion. That's different than the stair issue. I don't believe that's appropriate, or it needs to, there's damage done to a right of way there if we're gonna keep it. And it sounds like, based on what I'm hearing, you're keeping it. But start with, if you think this is a good idea, it might be too cost prohibitive, but, you know, it might cost some money to even get it a quote. I suppose it will cost some money to even get to.
Well, I don't think we
You
want
know.
to start a policy of building stairs.
Well,
on 59
but we need to
acres.
decide, as a council, you have to decide what you're gonna
But
do
this
about
one's
it.
a tough one, because clearly there was.
Well, you've taken one action,
Not too many years ago.
you denied the vacation, that's one action. You now need to either entertain the idea of building something there, or marking it and signing it, and maybe, restoring it to at least natural grass state, and I don't think you need to decide this at council level right now. I think you should probably direct staff and somewhat commission to come up with a game plan. You've got one idea. If this is too expensive for your taste, there might be less expensive ideas. And also, if there's any sort of enforcement or fine or penalty for, I don't know about removing the stairs, but if in fact we can show that the erosion issue and the boulders were done on public property without permission, that's not acceptable. I don't know if that merits further action, but that we should not allow that to happen. It did happen, but
Well, I got a feeling we just got to table this thing and look into it a little deeper and come up with some options. Maybe you guys can, I don't know what to do. I mean, I know these people are prepared to sue the city or whatever they want to do, and so be it. But I feel that there was a wrong done here, and I don't know how to correct it. So, I don't know. Does anybody have anything to say?
How about we we have staff look into it and report back next month? And that would be DJ. Because that's his area. That's my
Yeah.
recommendation.
Okay.
So
Do
what
we
do you-
need a motion for this?
So what is
or
he,
it's
what
just
is he
a no?
gonna do specifically?
So he's just gonna look into the erosion and
Is he gonna look into a ballpark cost for a set of galvanized stairs, working with Phil?
Can you guys let me work with TJ and look into some options? Can I
Do
help you
you
with
want me
that?
to bring this back to my commission? We've been discussing this at my commission level
Yeah.
2 or 3 times now. I mean,
Yeah.
Brad was saying we have multiple issues. We could either just look at the erosion, or we could look at the whole sphere of what we've been discussing.
I'd
So
like
what do you
look
want me
at the
to?
liability issues of the city on the thing too.
So liability, cost of stairs, and erosion from the boulders.
And again, we're not creating new ones. This is a restoration that we're talking about here. I don't know how to do it, but does this require a motion for
well,
action or an opinion?
how I would think it through is if, and that TJ can answer this, hopefully, this kind of informal guidance is fine, but if he needs to spend money to come up with a design, I think you need to authorize that by motion and have a bit more certainty on what's his limits, or is he just in fact finding and come up with a budget later? I don't know how much he can do without spending some money.
I could probably get a ballpark.
Yeah, with a rough order of magnitude or something.
I'll help you with that.
And that I think
or
is fine,
without.
because you're not authorizing.
No drawings, just
Okay.
So many feet, so many steps, you know.
So do we need a motion or is that just direction?
No, I think since we're not spending money at this point, just staff time, I think he's got enough direction to see what he can come up with, and it might include, the next round might be spending some money, and that would really have, we need a vote on that.
Okay, let's move on. Public forum is next. Action may or may not be taken on any issues raised. If council requires more information or time for consideration, the issue will be placed on the agenda of the next regular council meeting. Speaker must state their name and address. Anybody have anything? You coming up, Tom? Yeah. Of course.
I miss you guys.
Well, we miss you too.
I'm just going to point out a procedural concern.
Okay.
The first road right-of-way vacation you tabled. The second one, you approved the first one, you tabled the second one. During those public hearings, you never once read the recommendations from either the Park and Rec Commission or the Public Works Commission. The Public Works it was about a 2-hour meeting, and we probably spent an hour and a half discussing these road right-of-ways. And during the course of both public hearings, neither of the commission recommendations were read into the record. You know, if we're going to have commissions look at these things and make recommendations, maybe it's just an oversight of that hearing, but Public Works, and I know Park and Rec, they wrestled with these road right-of-ways for their recommendations too, and theirs was to table it, I think. But Public Works spent a lot of time coming up with those recommendations, and they weren't even read into the record during the public hearing. So,
Thanks, and sorry, Tom. Anybody else? City Attorney.
Before I get to what's stated on the agenda that I don't want to forget to update, because this is our last open meeting before we have mediation scheduled on the Perkins Road condemnation for July 28th. I got more direction from, I'm going to screw up the name of it, but the state board that is in charge of the open meeting law and the Data Privacy Act, and they do not recommend that we, like we had talked about in closed, going to having the full council participate in mediation. They have concerns about that being compatible with the open meetings law, which would be a closed meeting, but the closed meeting rules are part of the open meeting law, which is kind of contradictory. So anyway, I don't think we should openly contradict what the state commission is telling us. So we're back to we had a Plan B idea, I think, but I want to get full council authority for this. My thought is that, and I've talked to the mediator several times, Mike and I would physically attend, and we talked about Aaron and maybe Dave Schrupp. The mediator is open to one or both of you because you're not to 3 people yet, and that could be in person or by Zoom. He doesn't care. It's really your preference. So and you don't need to necessarily well, other than we need full council authority to confirm who's going. Yep. I don't know if the how going is that important as a full council, but I wanted to make sure you all heard that's, I think the ground rules the only ground rules we can live with or handle.
We might as well do Zoom. What do you think?
I'm sorry, what?
Let it do Zoom?
Yeah, we can do Zoom.
Then you'll go down and we'll do Zoom.
We'll go in person, and he said he can handle the technology
us,
of Zoom, yes.
Okay. So
Only 2 councils.
But he said these discussions were made with the state commission I'm talking about, were made a little bit in concert with this mediator. And so he's saying, hey, based on what I'm hearing, I would not recommend more than 2, whether we do it in person or Zoom, not more than 2 council members.
And you're not going to take action at that meeting? It's
Well,
just a meeting?
best case, that's a subjective answer. The most powerful thing we can do in that sort of setting is get a settlement that is subject to full council approval, because 2 council members can't, and for sure staff, can't bind the council. So we'd go through the process. It could be we don't get that far, and then we just go home. But, if we're going to settle, it would not be a final settlement because it needs to get ratified by a full council, and we need 3 people to vote yes.
Okay.
But are we still on the board with the same 2 people? And I'm just giving you notice of that. I can get you Zoom directions later. I don't have them yet, but I'll get them.
I support that.
Okay, everyone understand and agree?
Good, you good, Marcia?
Yeah.
Okay, then the thing that's on the agenda that was talked about some earlier, and to Marcia's point, we could have myself or maybe our labor attorney work up some better, I've seen this done in other settings, but kind of generic things that could be read for starting a closed meeting, or rules of closed meetings, or how to announce it in open session. There's different rules based on how you go into closed. But if we could get to that later. That's not relevant tonight, but that's something, based on having lots of closed meetings lately, we might want to have we could have, it's up to the council, but we could have a bit more of a written policy about that, so it just helps refresh everyone what the rules are and what we should say to get things on the record better. I think we have had a few closed meetings where, to be clear, the law is clear, if there's final action taken, we need to announce that in an open setting, and I think we have done that. The ones that we've been a little more muddy on is when nothing really, I shouldn't say nothing happened. Discussion happened, and that doesn't make it unimportant. But if there's not a final action taken, I think we do need to, and I don't think we have done it every time, like I'm doing today. I'm going to try to summarize what happened in closed session, even though final action was not taken, or maybe it was, you could argue. But we want to have a way to get on the, Shar needs to be able to get in open meetings, acknowledge that we had a closed session if nothing else. And something must have happened. Whether it was you just directed staff to look into it, that could be what happened, you know, but get it in the minutes of the next open meeting after a closed meeting, so we got something memorialized that we had a closed session.
That, or we could open the meeting and do the summary right away.
Well, but it depends on, you're right, that's how it's often done, but if it's done at with no media or staff, or it depends on the setting or timing of closed setting, but yes, we could do that more coincidentally with the closed session meeting too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just open the meeting and give your summary and then.
But sometimes people kind of go home when we go to we could say, hey, maybe you want to stick around because we might go back into open to give them a chance to, it's not really an open meeting if there's nobody else here. Anyway, that's more generic discussion as to the actual one we're talking about. I guess back to her point, that this is not coincidental now because it's been a while, but my memory of what happened was we received and acknowledged 2 different employee complaints. Am I right on that?
I don't think.
One was not an employee.
Oh, I used the word employee. 2 different complaints. So, sorry, I'll characterize that better. There was discussion, quite a bit of discussion, but in the end, I think the consensus was because we compared it with a prior closed session where we decided to hire a third-party investigation, which is maybe not the only thing you can do, but the consensus was not to do that in this case. There was discussion of how to handle it and how to make things better, but there was no authorization for any other investigation, so we at least want to announce in open session that we did consider and review the 2 complaints. And I don't want to be the one that, I'm trying to summarize it. I want you guys to vote on, did I say that right, or maybe add or subtract to what I said, but in the end, I want a motion and approval of something. That was my attempt to summarize the meeting, but I want you guys to weigh in if I did that well, or help me correct it if need be, because it's not really in the end, it should be a motion and a vote to confirm what happened in the closed session. Sorry, I'm talking too much now. You guys, somebody interrupt me now at this point, and is that accurate or best as you can acknowledge, or do you want to correct that a bit? Because in the end, I want this to get in the minutes. So it should be our best attempt to summarize what we did. Or didn't do, maybe you answered it negative.
I'm fine with your summary.
I didn't catch what you said, I'm sorry.
You said it's fine.
I'm fine with the summary from Brad.
Well, we talked a lot, and we had different ideas on how to handle it.
Okay.
We never all agreed on what exactly the plan was.
That's not up for discussion. I'll make a motion that
But
we.
I'm not done yet, and in the end, we just basically said we acknowledged just receiving them, and we read them, that was it.
And that we were not going to take action on them. Is that your second to the motion, or was that a motion down there from John?
No, that was just his comments.
Oh, his comment?
Well, and there's obviously many ways to recap something. I'm just, at a minimum, I don't want to get too caught up in the details, but at a minimum, I do want to get better at getting some acknowledgement of, we had a closed session and get it in the minutes of the next open meeting, or whether it's right afterwards or 2 weeks or a month later, but whenever we have an open meeting again. If there's not strong objections to how we're wording it, I heard a motion there and, yeah.
I'll make a motion that, I think it was June, what meeting was it?
June 14th?
June 14th, closed session. The city council acknowledges receipt of 2 complaints, and that the city council considered them and determined not to take any action on them.
Part of the issue here is that the action that we can take, there is none.
Well, and that,
I mean, that's what I understand, and I think that I'd like everybody to understand that there's nothing we can do other than.
well, Marcia, are you okay? I think, I'm considering that an amendment, or your second is asking for a slight amendment to just acknowledge that, I think what you're asking, but I'm not sure if Marcia agrees with this comment, that partly why no action is taken is there's not many great actions at our disposal.
That's right.
Do you, back to, this is not my motion, Marcia, so do you accept that friendly amendment?
Yeah, I guess I will. That's fine.
Any other discussion on that characterization of the closed session? If not, I'd ask you to vote on that, so we can't really adopt it as something without an official vote after a motion and a second.
I'll second Marcia's motion.
Okay.
Okay, discussion. Can I vote on that, or should I just stay out of it?
Well,
I just soon stay out of it.
then recuse yourself. And, Shar, could you do a roll call vote then?
Liebert Walls? Yes.
Herzog?
Yes.
Schrock?
Yes.
Andrews?
Yes.
Motion carries.
I think that's all I had on the city attorney report, unless there was any other questions. Did I cover things that you were expecting me to cover tonight? It's getting late. I had nothing else.
Okay, any new business? I got a little new business. Thursday afternoon at 6 o'clock, I am gonna have a town hall meeting at the Lions Park at the community center. And I actually am announcing that here because it'd be nice if the council was there to hear what the people have to say. But we probably can't do that because there'll be a quorum. I think there's almost 3 days if you were to post it. I don't know what it is, but I'm just inviting the public to come out and get a state of the city report and some comments and whatever, so.
Were you, I hadn't heard about this yet, were you expecting anyone to take minutes of this meeting?
No, informal, me and the citizens.
It only depends on if the council members, if 3 council members are going to show up, then we need to have it called as a special meeting and minutes taken.
That's why I'm asking that question.
Right.
Marcia's catching up with what I'm trying to ask. I mean, we don't know for sure if 3 are going to show up, but if so, it's a public meeting.
Well, we should know that. If the council members are going to come, then that's just
Well,
call it
then,
as a special.
Shar or
meeting.
somebody needs to be, that's what I'm getting at, yes. That's fine to do what you're doing, we need to have a little, if 3 of you are there, there's protocol. If only 2 of you are there, 2 are there,
Purpose
there's
of
not.
this is just, I want to hear what the people, they hear all this stuff going on in town. I want to have a dialogue with them, and you tell me.
There's nothing wrong with that purpose. If 3 of you are there, I think we need to notice it. I know we need to notice it. And we need to probably have someone there to take minutes, because it's a public meeting.
But we need to know if 3 council members.
Okay, does anybody want to go? Has anybody got an interest in it? Okay, that's easy.
No, I would come if it's a public if it's officially noticed as a meeting. I don't want to come and then have to be sent home.
I think that's what we're trying to confirm now, if it's going to be a special meeting. If 3 council members are going to be present, we need to know that now, so we can call it as a special meeting.
Something I want to add to this too is I have called this meeting too. I really would just as soon not have any participation by council. I would just soon have the floor. If you want to come and listen, listen. So,
But you are council.
I know.
So
It's my
John
meeting.
and Dave would be the two that could go, the rest of us stay home.
Well, if John wants who
But are you speaking on behalf of the council or just yourself?
Just myself. I know that I cannot speak on behalf of the council.
So can we just find out, John, are you gonna go?
I've got some things happening and I can't promise either way yet, so.
Okay, so are you saying no to it then, probably?
No, I
Dave?
didn't say that. No, I didn't say that. I just said.
Well, we
I
need to
don't
know
yet.
for calling a special meeting.
Right, I'm
So,
telling you, I can't tell you yet.
Well, when in doubt, we just call a special meeting. It's just then staff need to know what, that's the safe answer. Potentially three of you are there, we need to notice it properly and.
The only reason I'm announcing it here is that I don't want to certainly do it undercover, and I actually would like the council to be there to hear what people have to say, but that's it, So,
okay, I'll make a motion that we hold a special meeting at, where are you holding it? The
Lions Shelter down at the
Lions
Community
Shelter,
Center. 6 o'clock
Thursday, July, have no clue.
16th, I think it is.
16th, at
15th,
15th, at what time?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
6 p.m.
So I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Is this going to be recorded in any fashion?
We can talk, now that you for sure need to notice it, call me about what obligations we have in terms of recording or note-taking. We'll worry about that later, but at least I think my first worry was making sure we noticed it as a public meeting.
Okay.
We've done that. And follow the protocol, you know how to do that.
Well, I think the special meeting's the minutes gotta be taken, if it's a special meeting.
I think that's the answer, but which is fine.
Well,
You need to know.
Nobody asked if I was available, and I am not available that night. So hence, is it going to be recorded and I could do minutes later? Or would someone like Marcius want to step up and take minutes for me, or I don't know. I'm not available.
We don't need a city clerk to take them, obviously she normally does that. Well, why don't,
You want to take minutes?
I'll take minutes.
to the extent, why don't we talk and figure that out? And we'll have to have a plan of recording / someone else taking that duty on for the night.
Just let me know so that I don't do anything illegally before the meeting.
We just covered it, I think. We got to think of what you need to do at a minimum to legally hold a meeting, that's all.
Okay, let's move on. Old business, discuss status of city hall signs. What's going on with the signs?
I went over and looked at it, and took a look at it, I think, Mike, you did also, am I correct?
Yeah, I was forwarded an email by you inviting people to come and look at it, so Ted pulled it out, took a look at it. One of them is pretty beat up, but both of them are quite faded.
They both need restoration. One could be put up and could in fact be used, but the other one has got work done to it. It's really bad shape.
Our intent all along was just to put one sign up and decide what to do with the other side at a later date.
You could put it up, but it needs to be repainted, it needs to be touched up. It is not, I don't know, how many years was that sign up?
20 years.
Yeah, been up many years. It needs work. If you wanted a temporary thing, for some reason, it
Well,
would work.
until the council can decide what to do with the sign for the city hall, I thought we were just gonna put it up as a temporary sign until we budgeted money to do something that was more fitting. There's no question about it, but
One could be, but it's not pretty. I'm just gonna put it that way.
Ted, what do you got?
Just Mr. Mayor, everybody's aware, when they took it down, they took all the lettering off of it. So all it is the background. The lettering and all that has to be reinstalled when it's installed on it.
Well, I think they've ordered that and it's sitting there waiting for the sign to put the lettering around it, I believe.
I'm not aware of that. I just know that the lettering that was on it is not there.
Boy, this sign is a real We built a really nice building, but we can't get a sign up for the Save Our Life, huh?
It's tough shape, and I mean, there's a lot of letters sitting there, but I don't know.
Well, the letters are not. They're gonna put new lettering up on the whole thing. It's just the old logo sign is the only thing.
That's not what I was getting from Andy. It was like, what do you want me to do with it?
Well, okay.
So
So what do you wanna do with it? It's getting late.
forget that sign, is what I want to do.
So just leave it bare
Yeah.
until
Till we can figure out.
sometime next February or something, and we'll have a new sign.
Yeah. Go out and do something.
Okay, that's Aaron's opinion.